International Stadium, Jomo Kenyatta International Stadium.
Reports had emerged that the venue would be changed to the Kisumu State Lodge after State House Press Director Kanze Dena on Saturday said discussions were still ongoing. A chopper that had flown ODM leader Raila Odinga to a function attended by President Uhuru Kenyatta crashed as it tried to take off. The helicopter had dropped the former Prime Minister at Kudo Primary School in Siaya County when it went down. Raila spokesperson Dennis Onyango says the helicopter had dropped Raila and 4 others at the venue and was trying to create space for other choppers when it crashed. Also, the government has extended the nationwide night curfew by another 60 days until July 27th. Interior CS Fred Matiang'i in a Gazette notice extended the 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. curfew period as well as extended the ban for public gatherings, processions or movement either alone or as a group during the period of the curfew except if permitted by writing by a senior police officer. The measures are meant to contain the spread of the COVID-19, which has so far claimed 3,157 and left over 170,000 people positive. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
What are we looking at this Monday morning? There's already traffic. It's piling up on Mombasa Road today, and it's taking us to the roundabout at Nyeri Stadium roundabout. But now, we must remember, from Nyeri Stadium roundabout out towards Uhuru Highway, that has been closed, at least until this morning. Let's see if they're going to open it up. It closed Saturday morning, and should be opened this morning, the 31st of May. Let's wait and see if that will happen this Monday. All right, taking a look at Thika Road coming into the CBD this Monday. Also, it's jam-packed already. Kiambu Road is serving off into the Pangani underpass right at Muthaiga Square. We're going to see a lot of traffic heading out this morning. The service lanes are looking pretty good on Thika Road this morning. The highway is jam-packed, moving slowly. Langata Road also, we're going to see quite some movement there as well. Let's keep an eye on how things are opening up this Monday. We want to keep it as smooth as possible. Coming out of Westlands into the CBD looks pretty good as well, guys. Let's see what it looks like as we go through. Kenya Ferry Services reminding us 3 ferries serving you this morning at the Likoni channel. Not to forget, *721#. That's how you can pay your ferry toll charges. Lipa na M-Pesa. Do not carry cash or you will not be able to move. SpiceFM KE on Twitter, 40127. That's how we want you to get in touch with us about what it looks like in your neck of the woods today.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It is indeed the only way to start your day. Good morning. It's the 31st of May, smack dab on the end of the month, on the first Monday of the week. It's 6 minutes after 6, and this is The Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. And I say to you, good morning. CT, good morning.
Good morning, Ndo.
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Where are you? I can't find you. Are you there?
Yes. I am here.
Okay, I'm trying to connect you to
as
the
opposed to there.
Voila, there you are. You're here as opposed to there.
The answer when you first asked the question was yes, but just so that we are clear, the answer is still yes, even now. Yes.
Okay, City, how was your weekend?
Quiet.
Quiet?
My weekends tend to be quiet.
I realize this. You know what? I've realized that is true. You're very consistent about that. Every Monday, you say, my weekend was quiet. I did some reading. I did a drive out here, but it's been quiet.
You know, when you're on the road, every single day, Monday to Friday, at around 4:30, when you get to the weekend, you want to do something completely different. Yes. So that different is quiet.
Okay. And it was good quiet?
It was very good quiet.
Okay.
Very quiet.
I'm happy to see you today. And it's Monday, and there's a lot of stuff going on this morning, this week. Last week, we were told that it was going to be a fundamental, phenomenal, critical week in Kenya's history. Ooh. I must say that I got through the week and I didn't feel a blip on my skin at all.
And who was it? Remind me. Who told us it was going to be this...
critical week in Kenya's history?
Yes, fantabulous, exceptional week.
Politicians, of course.
I thought you were going to quote some, reliable
some
authority,
philosopher.
Surely.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Politicians said. Okay, so when politicians tell us it's going to rain, we should take them seriously.
Oh, God. No, well...
Or when politicians tell us the cure for COVID has been found, we should take them seriously.
So I hear what you're saying now is that I should have just gone along my merry way, as I did, and forgot about that.
It was mentioned, and I asked the same question because I didn't see what it was that was in the horizon that was going to make that week exceptional.
Right.
I didn't. Or did you?
No, actually I did not. I guess it's still a wait-and-see moment, n'est-ce pas?
The exceptional thing that I would consider outstanding is if politicians actually spoke the truth.
That would have been an eyebrow-raising moment.
Say, goodness gracious me. Or if they said, look, folks, given what is going on and given the problems that the country has, we are willing to take a pay cut of... okay, I haven't even finished it. I'm really laughing.
That's in the realm of the absurd.
I'm not going to mention a percentage, just pay cut and I'd say, okay. The thing is, for something to be exceptional, it has to be different from the norm. And last week, there was nothing that was different from the other weeks. Okay. It was cold. It stopped raining.
I hear you.
What this road called?
Mombasa Road?
That's the road. That's the one. Mombasa Road was...
jam-packed?
No, it was slightly better. Yes.
It's likely to be a little bit crazy this morning.
There's a section that was essentially a series of potholes. I don't know what they did, but they evened it out.
Okay.
Yes.
I maybe take a trip down Mombasa Road this week and see, because I ran away for it. We are not alone today. Joining us in the studio today is Wanjiro Gikonyo.
Hello.
Good morning.
Morning, dude.
How are you?
I'm very well.
It's good to see you after so long.
Yes. I've been lying low, doing my own stuff.
Yeah.
Yes, as is necessary sometimes.
It is true.
Reflecting and looking at, which way.
Some kind of hermitage, perhaps?
No,
not
just
really?
time. Time to deal with my own stuff.
Okay. Well, Wanjiro's guest hosting with us today, this week, actually. It's good to see you and welcome. We had lots of stuff to go through. A lot has been happening in the country, and we like to have those conversations. Things that are happening that Kenyans really may not be aware of, under the carpet behavior, slipping things in, and we don't know.
And it's under the carpet, but right in front of our
faces.
It's just that we choose not to know. So Kenya's in an austerity program, a fiscal consolidation program, a structural adjustment program. It's a big deal. And our politicians, of course, are concentrating on 2022 and not acknowledging the fact that we're in a major economic crisis.
Right.
And Kenyan households are going to pay and are already paying.
That's what I was going to say. Have already started paying.
Exactly.
It forms the basis of our conversations this morning in the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Eric Latif is still away looking for his Huduma number. A time like this next week, we're going to find out whether he's actually gotten it or not. Okay, so we'll do that. Before we get into finding out what's happening in the news and in the papers, let's take a look quickly at COVID-19, shall we? So we're looking at 171,018,901. Those are the number of cases that we have seen around the world so far. 3.5 million deaths, unfortunately. But good thing, 153,111,647 recoveries the world over. Now, in what would seem like not really good news, Vietnam has detected a new combination UK-Indian variant, according to health officials. I mean, when we started having the conversation about mutations, I believe it was CT you said at some point, be ready for mutations upon mutations. Be ready for something that you don't really know its genetic makeup just yet. As people continue to mix and match, you will see that more and more mutations will come about. And this is exactly what we're seeing now. Vietnam has detected a COVID variant that appears to be a combination of the Indian and UK variants and can spread quickly by air. According to officials, Vietnam's health minister, Nguyen, let me just get his name here. Nguyen Van Long described the latest mutation on Saturday as very dangerous. Viruses mutate all the time and most variants are inconsequential, but some can make a virus more contagious. Since COVID-19 was first identified in January 2020, thousands of mutations have been detected. Vietnam has uncovered a new COVID-19 variant combining characteristics of the two existing variants first found in India and the UK. He told a government meeting and said that the new hybrid variant was more transmissible than previously known versions, especially in the air, which is something that would be quite worrying if we want to think about it. He said it was discovered after running tests on newly detected patients, and he added that the genetic code of the virus would be available soon, so they're still looking to it and see what's made of. But just from initial reports, it's that it probably is a lot more contagious than what was previously found. And once you say it can travel in the air, you can just imagine what would happen if it would spread amongst a group of crowded people. So just when you think that things could start to get a little bit better, they get worse.
Actually, they are better. The epidemiologists know this and understand it well. Remember, a virus is a living organism, and much as we consider it a bit of a bother, all this mutation and then discussion we keep having, that is a sign that this particular living organism is struggling to live and to survive. That's how it mutates. Parasites do the same thing. You have a drug, you do not take the entire course. What you then do is you give that particular parasite an opportunity to be resistant. So whatever you used before, after a while, simply becomes useless. And it is for the same reason that you find very many people are resistant to certain antibiotics because they don't take the full course. So whatever it is that was the microorganism that was causing the illness gets used to it, and they are that's mutating, and then they sort of like sit back and bother you some more.
So, Siti, following that train of thought, and hi, it's been a long time and it's good to be here with you. Following that train of thought, where does that put us with respect to vaccinations?
What vaccinations do is this. They give your body a serious fighting chance, to put it simply. So that, yes, you will get infected, but it won't kill you. Or the effects won't be adverse.
Right.
That's what a vaccine does. So that anytime you come across it, yes, it may interact with you, but it's not going to harm you.
Because part of the thinking is that either you build up to herd immunity, which didn't seem to work, which is a lot of people in the population get infected, and then build that resistance, or you use the vaccines to build that resistance and stop the mutations. Kenya is at 2%. Is it 2% or are we at 3% now of vaccinations?
Well, just above 2%.
Right. And a lot of African countries. And if you look at the chart of vaccinations, you can now see developed world, you can see underdeveloped.
But we have
where are we? What's our prognosis? Where do we go from here?
We have a very unique, as a continent, we have a very unique trajectory with when you're referring to the vaccine. One, we have countries that have let the vaccines expire, meaning there were no takers, okay? We have countries that are now asking people to help them take the vaccines they were given. That's the COVAX vaccines, because their people don't seem to be interested. And we have certain countries, I'm not mentioning countries by name because it looked like I'm picking on them, that haven't vaccinated even a single person. So we have that unique mix and match when it comes to, because my argument is that if you look at COVID, the vaccine, and you're looking at the people of the African continent, the vast majority, this thing is not a priority. It's not complicated. There are more important things to deal with other than COVID.
Governments?
No, the people.
The people.
Right. Talk about the people. Europe is talking about COVID, vaccine passports? The
Yes.
COVID passports.
Yes.
Yeah.
As the basis for where people go and who you interact with. So in a year's time, when we still have very low vaccination rates, unless we have divine intervention and, we're able to build up some herd immunity and quell the rate of infections, because that could happen. We are, maybe I think we are sitting there thinking, hey, kitu itapita. The same
Yes.
way it came, it didn't catch us so badly.
It'll
We're not going India way. We're going to beat this. So
Actually-
unless that happens, it means you have a whole continent without the passport.
Yes.
So people,
and people
don't
will not
come
be able
in.
to travel and,
We
and
don't go
business
out.
Well,
will not
do
happen.
you know that India thought exactly that?
That's it.
That was the thinking. In fact,
They even
we've sorted
We'll
donated.
be fine.
Yes,
we
they
were helping
donated
people in our region
PPEs.
even,
Sorted
and there's
this thing
something
out.
going on. Okay, guys, we got to take a break and look at the weather. We'll be back in just a while. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It is the Situation Room. Nduoko City Muga and guest host Wanjiro Gikonyo with you in the studio today. Don't go away. We'll be saying hello to you in a short while. Those of you who are logged on SpiceFM KE on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook.
Spice FM. Spice up your life.
Johnny. Johnny. Johnny, hata unisikizi. Ni nini umesoma kwa simu hivyo?
Ni gazeti ya leo napitia.
Aje sasa. Si expert.
Ni 5 bob tu.
Keep up with the latest trends and news in health, real estate, finance, business, and entertainment from the convenience of your mobile phone. Dial star 550 star 3 hash to access pull-out sections of the standard e-paper for only 5 shillings from your telecom line with no additional charges to enable you to stay up to date, informed, and entertained.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
All right, this morning, 15 degrees and mostly cloudy conditions in Nairobi, 23 the high and lows of 14. It's 15 and cloudy in Nyeri, highs of 22 and lows of 14. Partly cloudy conditions in Nakuru at 15 degrees, highs of 27. We'll see lows of 13 today. 11 will be the low in Eldoret. It's clear currently at 14. It'll go to highs of 25. 29 will be the high in Kisumu. It's mostly clear at 18 degrees. Go up and come down to lows of 19. Mostly clear conditions at 17 in Kakamega, highs of 30 and lows of 14. We'll see lows of 24 in Mombasa, which is what it currently is at 24. Light rain in some parts of the town. It's also raining in some parts of Malindi at 27, highs of 30 and lows of 26. 19 will be the low where it's mostly clear in Kampala at 20, going to highs of 27. Looking into Dar es Salaam, it's mostly clear at 22, highs of 31 and lows of 23. We'll see lows of 8 in Johannesburg. Winter seems to be starting with current conditions of 6 degrees and clear. It'll just go to highs of 16 today. It's raining in Lagos at 26, highs of 32 and lows of 26 and 26. Mostly clear in Kinshasa, highs of 34 and lows of 24. 17 degrees and sunny conditions looking out east into Beijing, highs of 22 and lows of 14. And we'll see lows of 11 in Paris. It's clear at 12 at the moment, highs of 24. Cloudy conditions in London at 9, highs of 23 and lows of 12. It's 10 degrees Sunday night in New York. Coming into Monday, we will see highs of 11 and then back down to lows of 10.
There are so many people peddling what is false and that it bears remarkable resemblance to what is true.
Politicians have their agenda, and their agenda is to use every opportunity to sell that agenda and to loot this nation.
I have seen major strides that are done
in this country when we talk to each other as against talking at each other.
We start getting back into the tribal cocoons which were put to us by the colonial powers. You know, they gave us physical freedom but not mental freedom. We're still mentally colonized today into these cocoons of tribe.
Now, if you live in an area where it's difficult to find a dog,
He's a goat. I kid you not.
In which part of this country is it difficult to find a dog? So that you resort. Nafandi hii umbo yako iko na
nini umba special.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Indeed, morning's done right. It's the Situation Room, and we are in the studio today with guest host Wanjiro Gikonyo, Siti Muga, and Ndroko. Just before we get into what's going on in our news, let's look at Standard e-paper. Right, guys? It's easier for you then to read the paper at the touch of a button. You can subscribe to the Standard e-paper, epaper.standardmedia.co.ke. On the landing page, click on the login icon, top right corner of the page, and you enter your username and password. If you don't have one, you can sign up and create one using your Facebook or Gmail account credentials. Then you log in, you read now, and then you go to your payment plan, which you can pay via M-Pesa or with your card at a great 10 shillings per day. And you have access to the e-paper limited offer, 10 shillings per day, complimentary 10-day access to the e-paper archives, full access to the Standard Insider premium content, access to daily Sudoku and crossword puzzles, unlimited access to tender jobs and motor listings, daily bulletin with links to top 6 stories in the last 24 hours. That's the epaper.standardmedia.co.ke. Login, 10 shillings, and you can have access to the news as you see it. All right, so we're saying hello to you this morning. Karibuni sana to the Situation Room, all of you who've tuned in, and we'll say hello in a short while. But for now, let's kick it off with today's proverb at 23 minutes past 6 CT.
The proverb is from Côte d'Ivoire. Yes,
You seem to be liking this Côte d'Ivoire. This is the third one now in as many days.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Many days as many
as 3 days.
This is a new week.
3 proverbs, 3 days. Third proverb in as many days. Okay. Allons-y.
It is good to confuse me early in the morning.
Of course.
One tree does not make a forest. It's one of these proverbs that you can find equivalent in very, very many languages. Yes.
One tree does not make a forest.
But it sounds familiar.
Oh, this one is supposed to sound familiar. Yes. You know, it's like one finger cannot kill a louse. Isn't that? Yes.
Okay.
Simply put, no one is self-sufficient.
Voila.
No argument.
No argument.
No gender issues. City, this one is non-controversial.
Yes, there are some really saucy gender-insensitive proverbs.
Yes.
Which I have avoided completely.
Yes. You have...
No,
I've
turned
You've turned over a new leaf, obviously.
Completely.
Keep it up. I expect a terrible one tomorrow.
Oh, somehow. You now, just wait. You've laid bare the road.
I can see some trouble coming.
Let me just tell you, it is not terrible.
Okay.
Yes.
There's still Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, but okay.
Yes.
So let's take a look at what's going on news-wise, yes? Front page of the Standard, front and center, show of might as Uhuru tour starts. President Kenyatta landed in Kisumu accompanied by more than 15 cabinet and principal secretaries to launch projects in the region ahead of Madaraka Day celebrations in the city tomorrow. Okay, so there are many things that are being spoken of here. Legacy, projects, handshake, BBI, COVID, Madaraka Day. Nyanza feels might of handshake as Uhuru lands with top officials. More than 15 cabinet secretaries and principal secretaries are accompanied the president in a show of government might in a trip that has major political and economic connotation to the larger Western Kenya ahead of the 2022 general election. Among the CSs in Uhuru's entourage was James Macharia, George Makoha, Aidan Mohammed, Monica Juma, Cecily Karaoke, Betty Maina, Amina Mohammed, and Raphael Tuju, and Principal Secretary Karanja Kibicho and Jerome Ochieng. Also present was Chief of General Staff Robert Kibicho and other top security and national government officials. At least 20 members of parliament, mostly from Nyanza, were also present. While in the region, the president is expected to launch a 2.4 billion shillings Siaya Bondo water and sanitation project and 599 million Uhuru Business Park Market Complex, among other projects. Also on his agenda is the opening of the Kisumu Railway Terminus and the 200 million shilling refurbished wagon ferry, MV Uhuru. Good things. Nigeria, look like you've just chewed on a pickle. What's wrong?
No, I think the president obviously has had a couple of very bad weeks, lost a couple of by-elections, obviously had a momentous court ruling that scuttled the BBI process. So as the head of state sits there and thinks, wow, things are looking really bad, he then goes on the offensive and pulls out the whole cabinet from important business to go and launch projects. So this is, it's politics. Politicians do this. It's a bad time for the country. There are more important issues. At the same time, the projects are being launched. NHIF has said they will not pay for COVID-related expenses for the ordinary taxpayer or the ordinary contributor. At the end of the day, it's more politics and less about Wanjiko, and it gets worse by the day.
It's a difficult spot to be in because you want development. I mean, this is the thing. A developing country wants development. It's something you want. It's prescribed. But at the same time, you cannot have that flying in the face of the people of the country then who do not have a daily wherewithal, because that is what we are at right now.
But the other thing it demonstrates is what is development, because the priority is on visible infrastructure projects. And these infrastructure projects are what have driven us into the debt crisis that we are in.
That Kenya will have to pay for.
So unfortunately, from the word go, this administration was on the wrong footing on development, spent too much on infrastructure, too much corruption, but they're very good at PR. And if you notice, even in the paper, there are a lot of articles coming out, like the SG, the LAPSET, the Lamu Port article coming up, really talking it up, not looking at the obvious weaknesses around the Lamu Port, talking about, well, there was some good news, the court ruling on the SGR, that all transporters must now use the SGR. That's a win.
Yeah.
But the point is, we are on a charm offensive. The president's on a charm offensive, and we are the target of this charm offensive. So instead of getting facts and instead of getting solutions, we're getting PR.
Let me ask the question, that the win that all transporters must use the SGR, how is that a win?
It's a win for government. It's a win for the president, particularly because SGR is one of the is the big flagship project. This is the project that is likely to be the unraveling of the Uhuru legacy. It's the one that actually triggered the debt crisis in terms of the payments, in terms of, just the size of the sheer size of the project at the point where, relative to our GDP. So forcing transporters to use it, one, goes against market principles, because the idea is you have a development solution that's attractive to users, not using coercion. But the court has now...
is that an appeal court or just a high court?
This was, I think, the appeal court.
It'll go higher.
That's the point, yeah.
Even as we speak, the SGR is not able or capable of managing the cargo that comes through our ports. Even if we had another line and they went back and forth 3 times in a day, they still wouldn't be able to manage it. Now, how do you enforce such a thing and you're killing another sector altogether completely? What do you tell these people who, forget the people who own lorries. Those are business people, they own the lorries, they'll have a problem, easy to understand. Not difficult in understanding as the people who own the aeroplanes with COVID. What about those whose livelihood is actually gained through the businesses of transportation by lorry? It's an economy that the people of the coast depend on. So essentially, you're saying you won for the SGR and killed the livelihood of all these people.
And won a prize from China for as an infrastructure king.
So you gain one, but you gain
PR.
one. You gain one, but you cancel the other, so you're still at zero.
There's no
The message is this: that development hurts, and somebody's got to pay. That is the thinking.
Do you know
that President Uhuru Kenyatta, Jubilee administration, is fronting? That somebody's got to pay the price.
If the SGR could even pay for itself, okay, you would say it's a good thing. So let them have more cargo so that they can actually do well.
Shall we take a look at traffic, seeing as we're talking about this?
It's a dead duck. Please, go on.
Let's take a look at traffic.
Yes.
We'll be back in a minute. This is The Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. It's 28 minutes to 7 o'clock.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. 24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
On Mombasa Road this morning, as you're trying to get into the city, it is quite hot and heavy already. Around Cabanas, heading towards General Motors, we'll see some great traffic in and outbound today. A lot of folks trying to, get out of it before it gets heavy, and what it has caused is major traffic. The ICD route is looking pretty good as you're getting towards the exit of the Southern Bypass. You will get to the exit on the other end and trying to connect to the Langata Road, where traffic has already started to build up this morning, so watch out for that. North Airport Road, Outer Ring, going in the direction of Taj Mall and then heading out on that road is moving slowly, bumper to bumper in some parts, but hopefully it will not be too crazy. We are looking at the bypasses and they're looking pretty good for now, folks. Southern Bypass, Eastern Bypass, Northern, and coming out of Red Hill, looking pretty good, so use those where you can. Thika Road, on the other hand, as you're coming in from Kiambu Road, joining the Pangani Underpass out towards Ngara, it's already thumping this morning, so you want to keep an eye on things and hopefully we don't get stuck. These service lanes are looking pretty good on Thika Road as well. You want to use those. Are you stuck somewhere? Do you find a good route that other folks can use this morning? Let us know kindly. SpiceFMKE on Twitter. You want to text us on 40127. It's Monday. Let's hope it won't be manic and keep things moving.
When you see someone being jailed, a governor or two or someone who stole, then people will fear. Because our problem is not the borrowing, it's the stealing.
We've become actually a nation of thieves. The only thing we lack is an opportunity to steal.
The guys who quote the Bible and say I'm a Christian and all that, and they're thieves. Return what you have stolen 4 times. If you know that you have property or anything that you have stolen, just return and say, my God does not allow me to hold stolen things.
We are also a reflection of you, because you elect us. We don't get into our office by ourselves. We are a reflection of the people who elect us.
We don't want to go to the streets. We have a constitution that enables us to assert our will.
When the legislators are now being taken as hostage by the executive for whatever reason, we are now bound by what they want us to do.
This is just outside the realms of reality. We have impunity written into the DNA of our political class.
How old were you when you learned that Jeshi la Wokovu is Jeshi la Wokovu?
I can't say it very well. Jeshi la Wokovu.
And everyone knows. Okay.
This is The Situation Room, the only
Indeed,
way
it is
to
the only
start
way to
your
start
day.
your day. And we're looking at what's going on in the papers this morning at 25 minutes to 7 o'clock. What do you have, Andrew?
Okay. Yeah. Just, we were talking about the SGR, which is the most, it's
the whitest of elephants.
It is a totally white elephant. Somebody needs to pay. A number of people need to pay. And the question is how? How did this project get pushed down Parliament's throat? How did we get into this situation? Yes, and I think I'll stick on the theme of health. Rongai MP, Raymond Moi, this is in the Standard, page 22, has launched a pilot project that will see selected members of needy households enrolled with the National Health Insurance Fund at no cost. So they've set aside 2 million to cater for approximately 330 households. The pandemic has come as an eye-opener that we need to plan ahead for our health expenses. Now, this is great, sounds good. But also recently in the papers, I think it was yesterday and it was also mentioned last week, government will no longer be paying for COVID expenses for normal contributors onto the program. And this goes back to the SGR issue because it goes back to government is so heavily indebted that such a, maybe almost 2/3 of what we are collecting in revenue is going to debt repayments, such that there is no effective response and cushion. So that even if Kenyans have paid for the NHIF insurance, you've done your part, you're then not getting support.
I just thought about it.
And everybody, I'm sure everyone in this room, everyone listening has been affected. Either paying out of your pocket or paying for somebody and paying again and again. Where are we going to go with our health expenses?
I wrapped it up and I just thought, you know what? Government is now not able to pay for or care for Kenyans in the way in which they originally mandated to do because they've taken out these loans for projects that essentially would benefit Kenyans but do not. And so now Kenyans are having to pay for things that they didn't benefit from as opposed to enjoying things that those funds should have actually paid for.
Exactly.
That's what we are looking at.
That is the tragedy. And then there's a lot of doublespeak because government says that cushioning the vulnerable, an effective COVID response is essential for economic recovery. So their priority, even in going into the IMF program, was that we need to build up our health systems. So in the same stroke, they then remove the cushion that Kenyans have, collaborated. Because since to give credit where it's due, since 2013, a lot of Kenyans have subscribed onto the NHIF program.
Yep.
Because a lot of Kenyans didn't have insurance. But NHIF cannot deliver because government has not prioritized. And what should they have done? They should be putting money into cushioning Kenyans with respect to medical bills. I also think, and you and CT are probably closer to this, I think the treatment model we've taken, the treatment model we've taken is not the most effective. There's been a lot of emphasis on going for medical care and a lot less of emphasis on, kind of
Prevention.
Yeah. Which is a wider conversation about the gaps in our health system.
Right.
Because it has been shown if you're healthier, you're fitter, do this steaming and these kind of remedies. There's a lot of home remedies that people can take. But in Kenya, a lot of people are put into hospital immediately. And that's not sustainable. So at the end of the day, politics is there. But good policies bring good development. And we have a government with really bankrupt policies. And then they add on to that and do ridiculous things.
When the policies aren't bad, the implementation is where we really get it completely wrong. Because what's on paper, if you read it, believe me, if what we document didn't make sense, we wouldn't even get funding from institutions like IMF.
That's true.
Yes.
Yeah.
However, once that ink is dry,
go and do something totally different.
And we're told last week, a few billions enter the central bank coffers. Goodness gracious me. Thereafter, the song and dance begins. It's like the story of our lives. You don't even need to think. You almost know exactly what will happen. And as you correctly put it, it seems to be the growing legacy of this government.
That would be think about it would be the legacy. So even what we've seen in the current weeks with the infrastructure projects being launched, the PR that you talk about, the legacy to me is what the people remember. It is, you can say whatever it is that you want. You can have your PR stints here and there, but the true legacy of a leader is what the people remember, not what you say. And if people at this point are remembering that for a year and a half or even longer that they went hungry and they were not able to afford life, they were not able to afford the country, guess what? That is the legacy for which you will be remembered.
In fact, what they remember is what they feel.
Exactly.
And that is it.
Frustration, over and over again, inability to survive.
Crime is up. Crime is up. I've been reading about jackings on the Mombasa Road. In fact, I was saying, hey.
Today where I'm going.
There's an opportunity cost to come into SpiceFM this early in the morning. And you know, when you have these kind of carjackings coming back, you link it to that. People have lost livelihoods.
You know, when you think of crime,
yeah,
you think of maybe some thug with some blunt object waiting for you on the roadside. But it is part of an even that, if on the larger scale of things, is a smaller issue. Because what we've done, you know, we talk about devolving corruption. Believe me, every Kenyan who has an opportunity now is an entrepreneur. Where they work, that is their point of business, and they will look for every way. Usually it's a really, really crooked way of making sure, whether it is within the county government system, whether it is the police force, and here I must add, not all policemen, but they are well represented by those who do, okay? And then, that's at the level of the so-called Bonanchi. When you take it higher, it is the same story over and over and over again. In fact, our norm, when we say we're a nation of thieves, actually, it's an understatement. We are a nation of growing thievery. Meaning, every time you think this is how we're able to steal, something shocks you and you find, my goodness.
It's become even more sophisticated.
Yeah, we found a new way of pilfering.
Yeah, but you know, the thing is, that narrative is being spun by the politicians who, and you know, I agree with you, but disagree maybe with the direction in which we're not a nation of thieves.
Actually,
we have systems that reward thievery because it starts at the top.
But you can't reward something that doesn't exist.
Right, so it's the egg, chicken and egg.
Yeah.
The point is, if we accept that we're a nation of thieves and we label ourselves, then we reinforce bad behavior.
No,
rather,
not
we should recognize we've got bad systems. And to get through these systems, Kenyans are forced to do things that they normally wouldn't do. So our system is broken and our political leadership is broken.
No, corruption and thievery is not forced, Wanjiro. It's not forced.
It is created.
You make a decision on your own.
Socialized.
Wanjiro.
It's socialized. When you have broken systems to survive, for instance, my child gets a good grade. I need to place them in a good school. The normal system is rigged. I then have to bribe. That's how you build the culture. So if systems...
No, you don't have to bribe.
Countries that develop, by the way, countries that don't have high corruption, don't have better Kenyans at birth, better humans at birth than Kenya does. What happens in Kenya, because we are good humans, we do good things, our system tells us if you do not grease that system, you won't survive.
Actually,
so
you can
need
survive.
to look at...
But you're not in a shackled position.
It'll be painful, but you'll survive. What you're saying is actually true, Wanjiro. Let me not say it isn't. It is actually true. But you see, for a system to survive, it must be supported. And that is why I'm saying we like our corruption. It's not you who likes your corruption. You're well represented. People like to give bribes. People like to take shortcuts. They actually do. They don't have to.
But human nature of essence will take the shortcut.
I'm not giving that an excuse.
The systems need to preempt that. So when you build systems, what are you doing? You're trying to build systems that are democratic, systems that are fair, systems that have just penalties for people who break them. Why don't our systems work?
Can we improve on our constitution? You know the systems you're talking about.
Constitution isn't a system. It's a blueprint.
That's the point. When you have a structure that enables you to do the things you're saying, we don't really have an excuse.
I'll tell you where the problem lies, because I think our argument is about where does the problem lie, and I say it's not.
Can we talk about where
Kenyans?
the problem lies in just a short while? It's 6:45. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Things are getting hot and heavy. I think it's great as we continue to look at what's happening in the news and in the papers. Ndoko, Siti Muga, and Wanjiro Gikonyo in the studio with you this morning. I see you guys who are online. Hezbon, Jeffrey, Charity, Beidasli, Karibu Sana. The conversation continues right now.
have never sounded so good.
My favorite songs of the 1980s.
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. 24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
We've been all through it, you know. We go to school, study hard, get the much-deserved grades and celebrate our graduation. Then reality hits us. We get to the job market and we simply don't know where to start off. Thankfully, by visiting jobs.standardmedia.co.ke, your next career breakthrough could be a click away. Get the best in career advice, employment opportunities, internships, part-time jobs, CV writing and interview coaching. Give your career the much-needed lift on jobs.standardmedia.co.ke.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
Where you can become around the country, 94.4 in Nairobi. Let's kick it off there. Our live stream is up, SpiceFM KE on YouTube and Twitter. And as you're joining us now at 13 minutes to 7 o'clock, we're having a look at what's going on in the news. Wanjiro Gikonyo is our guest host in the studio today. CT Muga and Ndu Oko with you today. Okay, so CT, what's in the Business Daily?
In the Business Daily, Kenyans are corrupt.
Because of bad systems, because of bad political leaders.
Because
Continue.
we have good systems, but the corrupt Kenyans keep corrupting the system.
Bad political leadership.
You actually think I'm going to let go of that argument? Okay. The Business Daily has issues with banks, and more banks. But the thing that caught my attention was an article that was headlined, U.S. Embassy Blast Victims Seek Award from French Bank. Yes. The victims of the 1998 bombing in the U.S. This is a situation that has persisted for the longest time. Longest time in this sense. People who worked for the U.S. Embassy and died, suffered, and were injured in the bombing did get compensation. But those who were, as we say, collateral damage, that issue has been lingering on for the longest possible time. Let me just read a little bit of what is stated here. Victims of the 1998 bombing of U.S. Embassy in Nairobi are seeking a court order to compel the Attorney General to pursue compensation from top French bank BNP Paribas and Sudan. Okay? The victims, through Katiba Institute, have petitioned the High Court for an order directing Kenya to seek compensation from the French bank within 6 months in a suit that could trigger diplomatic tension. Okay? Now, every time one hears of human rights violations, stories like this just lend weight to it. Because people suffered. But just to draw a parallel to it, how long did it take for people who had suffered during the Mau Mau uprising, people who were put in concentration camps, people who were tortured, people who were killed, people who were displaced? How long? You know, that story hasn't ended as we speak.
No.
There was some form of compensation. There was this issue. It's like a never-ending situation. And if we bring it back to 2007, 2008, we still have people who were IDPs then, still IDPs
today.
Now. Okay? So it looks like whenever there is a crisis that requires leaders to sort of like stand up and do the right thing, they will dither. This previous week, two very monumental things happened. One, the German government apologized to the Namibian people for the 1904 genocide.
Genocide.
Yes. Now, remember, if you want to understand how horrendous it was, 3/4 of the population of a community, the Herero,
wiped out.
Clean, done, finished, dusted. Their lands, remember, they were driven into the desert in the hope that they would die of
whatever, be eaten by wild animals.
It didn't quite happen. But all the land that they owned was then taken over. This last week again, we saw the French government trying very hard to say they were sorry for what happened in Rwanda, which we all know is a genocide, but really saying that they were not really quite, responsible, and yet their soldiers were there. The German apology makes more sense. They actually said, let's call this thing what was a genocide, and we're wrong, and we apologize. So now, they're quibbling about the amounts. Now, does it need to take 100 years?
To figure it out.
100 years. What I'd like to hear is what the German government will do when it comes to compensating the Jews. Because 6 million people. I mean, there's stories there. You hear of this happening and the other happening. All I'm saying is, mankind does some horrible, horrendous things to each other. We do horrible things to each other. And this is where Wanjiro's discussion comes in. When you have good systems and you have people who are willing to maintain those systems, then we are safe.
True.
And I think this, Siti, you've put it so well. So many questions come up about reparations, which is what you're asking. Who do you determine? Do reparations, even that financial figure, does it compensate for the loss, the opportunity?
Is it enough? What's enough?
The psychological damage, the social damage, the extent to which you set back that community by exterminating people. How do you compensate that? Like now in this German-Namibian arrangement, I think is it something like 3 billion?
No, it's 1.3 billion
US
dollars.
Over 30 years.
100 years.
What? No, over 100 years.
100 years.
They've not been able to figure it out for 100 years.
The money will be spent over 30 years.
Oh, right. Okay.
In which case you're like, what? That's
it doesn't make a
development
difference.
aid.
Yeah.
Big deal. So it's a pressing question, and I think the bigger tragedy is that we then have very dysfunctional, selfish, small-minded leaders who are exacerbating our losses. Because the moment you've been violated, this kind of political, social violation, you're then on a back footing. And you need exceptional leaders to pull you out. So on one hand, there's a changing tide where governments are being called to account. And that's why the French president is very scared of opening that Pandora's box, because Europe was built on the wealth of Africa.
Yes.
But unfortunately, we continue to be plundered by our own leaders, which weakens our case. So where do we go with reparations? I think it's important. It's really, really important. But we also have to talk about the leadership we need now.
Well, do you know what is interesting? Even when they were partitioning Africa, they set ground rules. Among the ground rules they said, you are not supposed to enslave people. Meaning this slave trade of exporting, you are supposed to abide by the rules of war as set by the Treaty of Versailles. Okay? But these guys went against those very rules that these people had set. And then you're telling me that God knows how many years later
you're going to sort it out.
So what you're saying is there should also be prosecutions. But how do you prosecute 10?
You
100? Do you look, how far back do you look?
What are the parameters you now set in place?
No.
Who are you looking at?
It's not
who will you be looking at?
It's not prosecution.
What exactly will you be investigating to find out what exactly happened so that you can have a compensatory measurement enough to deal with exactly what happened?
And I think it's so important
you can't actually.
You can't. That's what I'm saying.
Do you know,
what is enough?
It's a token.
In New Zealand and Australia, similar discussions are being had by what we call the native indigenous populations and those who came after Captain Cook and his people. Okay? There's that discussion, and they're saying, you people came here and you just stopped short of wiping us out completely. Okay? Now, this is what bad governance
does.
Yes. Because right now with COVID, and if you look at what we're discussing in this country, policies which are talked of but never implemented, that is precisely what the government is doing to its people, and it doesn't seem to see it.
Right. Actually, it's so rich. We are talking about Namibia, Germany, and New Zealand and everybody. What about, like you said, our own IDPs?
Yes.
Our own Agenda 4 that was shelved. I think these processes need to go with good education. I think we need to become more politically aware, down to that child in nursery school. They need to know this is what happened. This is what even in Kenya, if you look at the Mau Mau, even the role of the local Kenyan administration and their cooperation with the foreign powers, we need to tell our history. And I think maybe part of this amnesia we have or this indifference we have is because we are not well rooted in where we came from.
Who writes our history?
Yeah. Yes.
Who
To the
writes-
victor
Yes. Who
goes
writes
the
our
spoils.
history?
And yes, the victor is the one who writes their version of history. And so you come out and we are so disconnected. And we follow these political leaders, not understanding what's at stake.
You know, there's a myth that many Kenyans believe that when you have a leader from your particular backyard, and this is often with reference to Central Kenya, that everyone in Central Kenya benefits. Man, it's a myth. Those who are poor in Central Kenya, if they haven't gone poor, they're just as poor as they were before.
But guess what? They know that. Kenyans, even if you go to Central Kenya, they are very unhappy with Uhuru. They were very unhappy
they
with
know.
Uhuru in 2017.
Do the
But
rest of
what
the
did they
Kenyans
do?
know this, Wanjiru?
They know. There's
The
a
rest of the
disconnect. There's a disconnect between knowing and my political actions. And that is what we have to bridge because they know. Central Kenya has been fed up with the Jubilee administration, with Uhuru
They
Kenyatta
are.
since a long time ago.
Do you think the rest of the Kenyans know
They
that
don't
Central
know this.
Kenya are suffering?
They don't know.
Or that they're having a hard time? The answer is no.
The optics of it is by virtue of the fact that the
That you-
president
it
comes
comes
from
from
there,
your
you are
region,
enjoying all
you
the
are-
spoils.
that's why I'm calling
Period.
it a myth.
Period. Ask around.
The vast majority of the Mwananchi in Central Kenya excel living and strives and struggles to do their own thing. With the Uhuru government, their lives haven't changed for the better.
They know that. They've gone worse.
They do. And what I'm saying, Wanjiru, is the rest of the Kenyans
Do
don't
not.
know that.
In fact, other
Because-
Kenyans know the opposite.
I don't think it's... yeah, maybe I agree, but what kind of knowing?
No,
There's
knowing,
a knowing...
as in generally, look.
As far as they're concerned,
Wanjiru,
because the president is from Central Kenya,
yeah, then
Central Kenya as a whole is enjoying the spoils
and
of
they
the
will
presidency.
and they will tell you, see, they got coffee money.
That's
You're
it.
Saying, hey, hold,
So what
hold.
you're saying actually is different. You're saying that the ethnic divide...
I'm saying there's a myth around certain things. I'm carrying on with the discussion that I've been having. I'm saying the reality of the suffering of Kenyans, in essence, I'm saying, is not ethnic. It doesn't matter which community you come from. You will suffer like everybody else because the leadership of this country is a group. It's a tribe.
But I'm telling you, I think Kenyans know very well, but there's a gap between knowing and doing because they still fear. I think Kenyans know that we've been shortchanged, we don't trust these guys, but there's a fear of the other tribe taking over. So fear outweighs the practical loss, economic loss that I suffer. So they're like, at least
I got
Guru's not
something.
going to come and violate us.
Okay.
Because
we're
in
running
their
down-
mind...
Yeah. We're running down to the hour, and I know this conversation is going to find itself back in the conversations that we'll have this morning, but just really quickly in seconds, we know that Matiang'i has extended the night curfew for another 60 days, and in a special Gazette notice, Interior Cabinet Secretary on Friday extended the curfew for 60 days. The previous curfew order expired Saturday, and everybody was wondering, so now what happens? Another 2 months, guys, and that we have to remember is from 10 p.m. until 4 a.m. So it continues for another 2 months. It's Kenya's biggest conversations. More conversations coming up as we go into the 7 o'clock hour. We're going to listen to the news and then come back and take a look at traffic and see what's happening there. It's Ndoko City Mugan. We're going to Wanjiru with you this morning.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning. This is the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga. President Uhuru Kenyatta is in Kisumu for a 3-day walking tour of Nyanza region, during which he'll visit several government projects. Speaking to Ananchi who turned up to welcome him at Wagai Market, the president, who was accompanied by former PM Raila Odinga and several Luo Nyanza leaders, urged area residents to back the BBI, saying the reform process is aimed at uniting and accelerating the country's progress. Kenyatta also said that he's confident that the appeal filed against the BBI will be successful in the Court of Appeal.
Na kutoka wakati ambapo tulisema ya kwamba tutaunganisha Wakenya. Ndugu yangu amesimama kidete, tumesaidiana na tutaendelea kusaidiana. Hata tukiangalia siku za usoni tutakuwa tukiangalia pamoja, na ndio Wakenya wawe kitu kimoja. Mwataka hivyo ama mwataka namna gani?
Sasa sisi tulikubaliana, tunataka kuleta mabadiliko ya kudumu kwenye wananchi. Naitwa BBI.
Elsewhere, former Kibwezi West MP Kalembe Ndile's body has been moved to Lee Funeral Home after he died while receiving treatment in a Nairobi hospital. Led by President Uhuru Kenyatta and other leaders, he was eulogized as a self-made leader who was a darling to audiences. Here are leaders Kalonzo Musyoka and Mutua Kilonzo Jr.
Who is not only a Kamba leader, person from Machakos, and a person who runs businesses all over the country, but a person who was loved by many Kenyans. And therefore, we are very sad to have lost Kalembe Ndile.
Mheshimiwa Kalembe Ndile stood truly for the common person, mwananchi wa kawaida. Hakuficha, hakuogopa, alikuwa ujasiri wa ajabu.
Kenyans across counties will begin receiving their second dose of the COVID-19 vaccine on Wednesday. Vaccine Task Force's Willis Ahwale says the distribution of the vaccine will start today, and those who are set to receive their second jab will be informed through text messages. The Ministry of Health last week launched the second jab after receiving more than 100,000 vaccines. 5 police recruits have been arrested at Embakasi's Police Training College with fake academic certificates. According to police reports, the 5 were undergoing a basic constable course at the National Police Service College Embakasi B campus when detectives picked them. Detectives detected the recruits after NEC declared their KCSE certificates fake. Elsewhere, a woman suspected to be the mastermind of a Ponzi scheme that was used to swindle Kenyans out of hundreds of millions of shillings has been arrested. Stacey Marie Parker, 50, who was arrested at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport upon arrival from USA. Parker is linked to Amazon Web Worker, a Ponzi scheme that drained potential investors of millions of shillings. Users were duped into investing in an online get-rich-quick scheme that promised unusually high returns. Those lured into the scheme through social media advertisements were promised a 38% return on investment. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
All right, already on Thika Road this morning, trying to get in the city. The question is, what is the traffic like? Well, the service lane at the Muthaiga is a disaster as usual. Not moving, guys. Looking pretty terrible from where we're looking at it now. Let's look at other parts now. Coming off Mombasa Road, of course, Cabanas going towards General Motors. It's quite dodgy as you're trying to get out of that very narrow road. So parts of Mombasa Road, they started, the best word I can use is Chimba, right? They were doing that over the weekend, and so that makes the road a lot narrower. So with the traffic that we've added this morning, it is not easier than it was last week to get through. So we're going to see a lot more traffic on Mombasa Road today, in and outbound. All right, coming from that Bunyala Road roundabout area towards Nyayo Stadium, there's a part of it that was closed off. It's supposed to be opened up this morning at about 9 o'clock. We're just going to have to do a wait see if that actually happens, right? The Southern Bypass looking pretty good as you exit Mombasa Road, heading out towards the city. You'll get to Langata Road, however, and things are going to shut down because the traffic on Langata Road has piled up quite some. Headed out into the city. The interchange from Ole Sereni is what we're looking at now specifically. All right, going towards North Airport Road and Taj Mall, out towards Outer Ring. It's very slow there as well. Gong Road, what are we looking at, guys? What's good? Tell us. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. That's how you can get in touch. You can text this morning on 40127. We want to know what it looks like where you are this morning, and hopefully we can keep things moving.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room. The only way to start your day.
Wherever you're tuned in this morning on SpiceFM KE, that's what we are on online today on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter. 94.4 in Nairobi, 87.9 in Mombasa, 96.0 in Nakuru. Eldoret is tuned in on 96.7, 90.9 in Nyeri, 102.5 in Kisumu and 97.9 in Malindi. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. In the studio today with you, Ndu Oko, Siti Muga, and our guest host for this week, Wanjiru Gikonyo. And we're starting conversations this week and looking at Kenya's debt crisis. We're looking at the money matters and asking ourselves, what's really going on here? But before we get into the thick of the conversation, Siti, today's proverb?
One tree does not make a forest.
One tree does not make a forest. I have an interesting feeling that that's going to weave into our conversations today.
Rest assured it will.
It will. Okay, so we're getting into the money talks. Wanjiru?
Right. In May of this year, the IMF approved the Kenya program for fiscal consolidation, structural adjustment. In essence, because Kenya is in a debt crisis, because our debt repayments outstrip our ability to raise revenue, because as a country we've been unable to service our debt and we're at risk of default. Kenya started negotiating with the IMF in 2019, before COVID, because the debt distress started before COVID. And then, of course, with COVID coming in, Kenya borrowed a little bit from IMF for COVID response and continued the negotiation for a program to help restructure the debt, help alleviate the issues that have caused the debt, and get us back on a sustainable debt footing. That is, when countries go to the IMF is the lender of last resort. It's like your receiver manager. You're saying, things are bad, step in, help us. So what the IMF does is they sit down with government and they lay down conditions that will help not just deal with paying the immediate loans, because they do advance some money, they deal with the issues that have aggravated. So in the case of this particular program, the priorities are, in fact, it's titled, it seeks to help, it's an emergency pandemic support to help Kenya bolster its post-COVID response program. And the priorities include reducing debt vulnerabilities, that's dealing with the debt problem. It also includes developing a strategy to manage risks associated with state-owned enterprises, supporting vulnerable groups and investing in COVID-related sectors such as health, so that you can make that robust, and then increasing supporting transparency and the fight against corruption.
Okay.
So, it's got a number of things. Therefore, as the Okoa Uchumi Coalition, because of course we've been campaigning around debt, I have identified that this is a really important program and should be center stage of government's public statements. But actually what's happened is government has kind of signed off with the IMF and then they're going off and doing their own thing. Yet everything that comes out of the budget is colored by this document. So it's very important to understand what is in this agreement. Is it good for Kenyans? Of course, there's a lot of good stuff there. There's some bad stuff there. There's some really ugly stuff there. And what we're trying to do is just to kind of understand and educate ourselves. So we reached out to SpiceFM, thank you so much for agreeing to do this. And we have a number of speakers, some of whom you've proposed, some that we propose, that can help us understand better where we stand so that we can become more politically engaged. Because Kenyans, yes.
And even aware
And engaged. Because democracy democracy requires active, engaged citizens. There is no democracy. You can have the best constitution in the world. But if we are passive, waiting for our political leaders to legislate in our best interest, we will continue to receive the short end of the stick. To put it politely.
We'll continue languishing.
So today specifically, we're looking at, the budget, the proposed budget 2021-2022. And the question that we're asking today is this a COVID budget? And why are we asking that question? The last almost 2 years now has shown major gaps in the health system. And was clear that because of COVID, there's so many things that had already gone wrong and, continued to go wrong. And there was already, ratifications made, Kenya being one of them, that you would make sure that health was dealt at least a considerable amount of every annual budget, within the fiscal year. It would have been assumed that now coming into this year, health would have gotten a considerable chunk because it was clear that systems had failed. So that's the conversation that we're having today. The 2021-2022 budget. Is it a COVID budget, and should it be? Joining us on the line today to open up this conversation is a good friend, James Muragori, who is the CEO of the Institute of Public Finance. James, good morning. Hello, James. I don't know if you can hear me. Hello, James. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, there you are. I can see you now. I can hear you.
Great.
Karibu Sana. Ndru is here with you. CT is also here, and Wanjiru, as you know, is here. So we are starting off with that conversation, asking ourselves, is this a COVID budget, or are we just seeing another budget as though nothing has happened in the world and the country over the last 1.5 years? What are we looking at, and what do we hope to expect? The last time you were with us in the room, you were a bit of a frustrated man when we were looking at, what the country is going through in terms of debt. Where are you today?
Thank you, Do. Good morning, Fiti, and good morning, Wanjiru.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm glad to be back this morning. And, the question we have is a very interesting question, whether, this is a COVID budget. No, this is not a COVID budget. This is a debt repayment budget. We are looking at, highlights. If you pick the highlights for this budget, then you realize we are spending approximately 88% of our revenue, anticipated revenue from July this year to June next year, around 88% on debt repayment. And the amount of money we are dedicating to the Ministry of Health and COVID-related issues is negligible. We have approximately 15 billion only for COVID, of which 3.4 billion is for procurement of vaccines from July. Now, according to assessments, we need approximately 34 billion Kenya shillings to vaccinate 50% of our population. So, and with 15 billion only for COVID-related works out of 121 billion total allocation to the Ministry of Health, then we are saying we have not adequately responded to the pandemic. Of course, we know across the budget there are other provisions for COVID-related issues, like supporting the private sector through the guarantee fund, but it's not clear because then this also has to be given, in relation to the post-COVID economic recovery strategy of 2020. Of which identified, critical sectors that needs to be invested in so that we can progressively move towards taking back our economy to where it ought to have been.
Right. I think, James, that's a shocking starter because if, as you say, this is not a COVID budget, it's a debt repayment budget, we must repay the debts. We do need to show up the COVID response. So what needs to happen? Should Parliament be passing this this budget, and what changes need to be made? I think the CS had asked for some feedback, tips from the public about how to strengthen this budget. What are your proposals?
Thanks, Wajiro. By the CS asking for feedback tips, those are speechwriting tips. Because at this particular point, even if you give feedback, it will not be taken in as policy because the budget is statutorily provided for with regards to when Parliament discusses and approves, when National Treasury makes critical decisions. And what National Treasury did sometimes end of last year and early this year, they actually asked for feedback, proper feedback, which has been provided by stakeholders. So at this particular point, when the CS is asking for tips, like I mentioned, these are vocabularies that need to be used in the speech, and which are very important so that it can be in a language that citizens understand. Because what we'll be talking about next week is revenue-raising measures. What is already contained in the finance bill and what is in the budget estimates as provided in the PFM Act. So when you think about what needs to be done here, it's where Parliament needs to come and ask, where are we as a country? Because we had already made these commitments, and we've seen, if you look at the compliance of this budget with regards to the budget policy statement, there has been attempts and good effort by the National Treasury to meet policy resolutions by Parliament. But we also see one of the things that got breached is that the ceilings were approved in the budget policy statement, but then they get breached. And this breach arises out of what we call the consolidated fund services, of which the movement was in excess of 300 billion. That clearly, even up to now, even Parliament itself has not been able to identify, the Parliamentary Budget Office has not been able to identify exactly this consolidated fund service expenditure that has come in. But clearly it points to debt. But we know Kenya has been pursuing the debt sustainability, initiative, the DSSI, debt suspension initiative, so that we can have resources allocated, to response in the economy, and also to ensure that we are able to be able to provide resources to the critical sector. But the hardest thing also needs to happen is that this budget, the approval process, we should see Parliament calling for stronger consolidation, fiscal consolidation for us to realize. And some of these things need to be extremely difficult measures to be taken, And I think that's where we need to start, because now it's in Parliament's hands, and it's their responsibility now to approve with or with. They can choose to ignore what has been presented and approve it as it is, or they can choose to critically interrogate and approve with amendments. And I know Parliament has called for public participation on Wednesday this week for stakeholders to make comments. But we would want to see this just not being very tokenistic, where we're just calling Parliament is calling for public participation for purposes of meeting statutory threshold of public participation, but with keen intent of taking feedback from citizens, from every stakeholder.
What guarantee is there for that, James, that whatever public participation will take place on Wednesday as concerns this budget, that they will take that sentiment and make any kind of changes that they possibly can? Do we have any kind of guarantee? Because if there is none, you can imagine that the public would say, then there is no point.
Exactly. And I think one of the response to Parliament with regards to public participation in the budget process has, increased participation apathy, in the budget process. And this is where, for example, we call the chair of the budget committee, Honorable Kanini Kega, because within this period he's been the member of the chair of the budget committees when we've had the worst kind of form of public participation, where, it's very tokenistic. we just participating so that they can tick that we had participation. And I think it's important for us to call them out when we need to call them out, because then it just beats the whole purpose of constitutional provisions of public participation.
Yeah, so James, did the CS lie to the IMF? Because one of the main pillars of the fiscal consolidation program is to support vulnerable groups and increase intervention in COVID-related sectors such as health. This is part of the promises that the government of Kenya put on the table. And indeed, every time the CS talks about debt, he talks about the COVID response. He says we have COVID, we must respond. He doesn't say we are in a debt crisis. You are saying this is a debt budget, a debt repayment budget. It's not a COVID budget. Are we being, treated to lies and PR by the CS?
So when you think about this budget and the commitments that the government made to IMF and those who we owe money to and those who we are seeking money from, the commitments do not seem to strongly reflect, because we've had the current assessment by IMF, I think 2 weeks ago. But when it comes to the commitments made with regards to COVID, that does not seem to be showing up in the budget. Now this budget and COVID, everyone blame, nowadays anything happens, you blame COVID. Even probably when you have a tire puncture, you blame COVID.
Of course, yes.
And we have come to accept that. So what we have to think about is these commitments. How do they look? Because technically, there will be opportunities for Treasury to engage with IMF in the package that they have agreed on, so that they can draw on the resource. And most of the time, when you come to think about the resources that we are drawing, it's just about to buffer our current account deficit and to stabilize the Kenya shilling. Because every time there is a drawdown from IMF accounts to our accounts at central bank, the Kenya shilling stabilizes. So it's a critical component of our macro environment. But what commitment we've made as a country within that package is what needs to be interrogated further, because we committed to invest more on social protection, but that does not indicate our social protection is also heavily funded by donors, just like the health sector. If you look at the health sector, we are probably talking about 20-30% of the 120 billion is donor funded. While we should be reducing this, it clearly indicates that our commitment for COVID response, it's between what we present in public and what we do in reality. They are two different things.
I'm looking at
that's what needs to be challenged.
I'm looking at the situation that we are in currently, and I feel that there's always a game of catch-up that's played, because the budget process, from what we understand, it doesn't start when a preamble to budget is being announced. It doesn't start there. Neither does it start on the steps of Parliament when the CS then is holding the briefcase. This is a process that has taken place well in advance. I mean, we're talking about months of deliberation and, looking at crunching the numbers and making sure that everything is in place. COVID, yes, took people by surprise. It did. It came out basically of the blue. But guess what? It stayed for some time. It's been here. It still is here. From all indications, it's going to be here for a while. And it has showed certain things that are not working in terms of systems in the country. But it would seem as if now we are having the conversation when it has already been cast in stone. How can we change this constant narrative of coming out and say the numbers that we see will not work? Hasn't it got to be that these deliberations and these agitations that we are seeing today need to be brought up when the process is being carried out and not when it's already been proposed? Because if we look at COVID, 1.5 years down the line, it's clear what is wrong. It's clear where funds are necessary. It's clear where the budget allocations need to be. But now The agitations come up because we've been privy to the information. Hadn't it better be that during the process of budget making is now when all these things ought to be brought up?
Absolutely. And at the Institute of Public Finance, when we released our annual shadow budget, we called, for example, for freezing of new projects. Now, in the fiscal consolidation plan by World Bank, which was done jointly by World Bank and National Treasury, if you were to be serious from last year as a country and consider no new projects or stop a third of the dormant projects, approximately 174 projects or thereabout, we would realize commitment of approximately 150 billion Kenya shillings. But you see, the unfortunate thing is what we talk and what we do, that does not add up. And I think that's where probably the National Treasury needs to continuously have an engagement with citizens so that we can have, a public deliberation where we challenge, each other and ask hard questions. Because what we do is, the National Treasury will light an opportunity for engagement, a public deliberation between citizens and the National Treasury. Misses most of stakeholders. That misses. Because then there is no opportunity for deliberation, so that we can challenge and say, National Treasury have already identified approximately 174 projects that would save the country a full year of Kenya shillings 150 billion. Why then do we have to commit those resources in the budget instead of moving them for COVID response, for example?
Sure. Tough decisions.
The other thing is, for example, hard decisions. If you notice, in the county allocations, we have removed what we call conditional grants for level 5, level 4, level 5 hospitals. But in the post-COVID economic recovery strategy, those were identified as critical pillars for response to COVID. But right now, we don't have conditional grants for them. We've left it as part of equitable share from counties. And we know the challenges that counties have with regards to public finance management. It is imperative that this conversation, Senate needs to pick it up. Of course, we've seen the current conditional grants propositions approved by, currently under the Senate for discussion on how conditional grants need to move. But the conversations need to move on where are we taking those decisions, resources. The other question would be on management of our wage bill. Again, National Treasury last year identified that on average, if we were to look at travel-related expenditures and remove that from the budget in last year financial year and this financial year, on average we'll be saving another 10 billion on travel-related allowances only in the civil service. So that 10 billion in a year is what we are saying that we've allocated 3.4 billion on vaccines. And the people who are traveling are also a part of the population that need to be vaccinated.
Right.
You travel and you have got no money for vaccination.
James, let me ask this question. I always like the way you outline your thoughts. Very clear, very easy to understand, but also very indicting on our government by simply stating the facts. My question is this. What can we do with what we have? Because I've been listening, and every time I listen to the things that we ought to do and we don't do, if I don't stop myself, I'll go into a depression. So I have chosen to ask myself the all-important question, okay, this is what we have. What can we realistically do with it? This is what the budget is allocating. What can be done with it? Or is it just a complete waste of time and we should tell the government, just keep the budget, we don't need it, don't spend any money because it's not going to help us? What can we do with the money that has been allocated? I'm specifically in health, not the other sectors, health.
James, before you answer that question, I'm going to ask us to go to a break, and then you can gather your thoughts a little bit and answer that question. All important one from CT this morning. It is now 7:30. We're having a conversation about COVID budgets. Is it realistic, and can we make it work?
This is the Situation Room. The only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is SpiceFM.
as the Kenyans are roared into the home straight here. 4 Kenyan queens have lit up this balmy Bahamian night.
It's where the rivalry is unmatched, where the soul meets the track, where the great are distinguished from the good. An arena where the records are broken.
A new world record. It's not just been beaten, it's been obliterated.
A stage where the legends are born. For Team Kenya, the Olympics is more than just a sport. It is our tradition. It's an event that has put Kenya on the roadmap. The Standard Group lets you watch every minute and every action live in the 2020 Tokyo Olympics, because we live for Team Kenya. We live for the game. At Standard Group, sports lives here.
Chilled Spice. The weather with
All right,
Spice
so
FM.
we're looking at cloudy conditions in Nairobi this morning at 15, highs of 23 and lows of 14. Into Nyeri, light rain at 14, highs of 22. We'll see highs of 28 in Nakuru. It's mostly sunny at 15. Sunny conditions in Eldoret as well at 15 degrees, highs of 25 and lows of 11. 19 will be the low in Kisumu today, where it's sunny at 29. Highs of 30 in Kakamega today. It's sunny at 19, coming down to lows of 14. Mostly sunny conditions in Mombasa at 24, highs of 30 and lows of 24. And in Malindi, it's mostly sunny, 27 at the moment, highs of 30 and lows of 26. Mostly sunny conditions in Kampala at 21, highs of 27 and lows of 19. Dar es Salaam is sunny this morning at 23, highs of 31 and lows of 23. Mostly cloudy conditions at 5 in Johannesburg, highs of 16 and lows of 8. And it's raining lightly in Lagos at 27, highs of 30 and lows of 26. And we're looking at mostly sunny conditions in cloudy conditions rather in Kinshasa at 25, highs of 34 and lows of 24.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. 24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
24 teams, 12 host cities, 6 groups, all battling for one trophy. The long-awaited Euro 2020 is here at last upon us. The fans might not be within touching distance.
Good cross, Giroud attacks it and scores, and France are ahead!
But the atmosphere will only get to a fever pitch. From the 11th of June to the 11th of July, catch the tackles, the goals, and all your favorite football stars as the elite European nations go head-to-head. The Standard Group brings you the UEFA Euro 2020 tournament live across our channel.
Oh, what a wonderful goal!
As the official UEFA Euro 2020 free-to-air broadcast partner in Kenya, because we live for the game. And that's why at Standard Group, sports lives here.
Spice FM, Malindi.
Still piling up considerably on Mombasa Road this morning, going out towards the Nyeri Stadium roundabout. Remember, that part of the road is still closed coming in from Bunyala, and hopefully they will open up this morning. We're still watching to see. We also know the NMS is still working on that Green Park terminal, and we will be given information as to whether you will dock and board at Green Park or whether we go back to railways. So it's a wait and see. But for now, I guess we will just go with what the status quo is, depending on what the status quo is. All right, looking at Thika Road, getting towards the Pangani underpass coming from Kiambu Road, also joining then from the Greater Highway. It's a mishmash, and we see that the service lanes in some parts are working. Coming from Survey, they seem to be all right. Otherwise, stick to the main highway. You shouldn't have too much issues with that. Coming off the Southern Bypass at the Ole Sereni exit, as you head out, shouldn't be too bad as you connect to the ICD route. But then you get to the exit connecting with Langata Road, and you're going to slow down some because there's already traffic building up this morning. Coming out of Westlands looks pretty good as you get into the CBD at the University University Way roundabout. Shouldn't cause too much of a headache. But we'll keep an eye on things and see how they open up going towards 8 o'clock. We are in the middle of traffic hour. Let's keep in touch to see what happens in your neck of the woods. Talk to us on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127. We want to keep things moving this morning.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
This morning on SpiceFM KE, that's where our live stream is, Twitter and YouTube and Facebook. In the studio this morning with Ndoko Siti Muga and Wanjiro Gikonyo, we're having a discussion today about the budget 2021-2022 and asking vital questions that many could argue should have been asked before. Many can argue should have been answered for the questions that were asked before, for the issues that were brought up. Before we went to the break, Siti had that question for you, James. Is all right. So what do we do right now? What do we do with what we have? On the line with us is James Morguri, who is from the Institute. Who is from the Institute of Public Finance and answering these questions for us this morning. So what do we do? Now we are here. This is what we have.
It's difficult because we have plans as a country on what we need to do. With the 121 billion shillings budget for health, it's a drop, and especially in this year of pandemic. And CT, please don't get depressed. It's just prepare yourself to live. It's with what we have.
Don't worry, my brother. I'm not suicidal. It's just very daunting. What is our budget? How many trillions is our budget?
Our budget is at 3.6 trillion.
Okay, 3.6 trillion.
Of which indicates that approximately we need to borrow approximately 2 trillion.
All right. Now look we're talking health. We're talking about the economy. We're talking about injecting stimulus into the system. Everything that needs to give us a 360 attention to COVID-related issues. How much are we allocating to this? Because our biggest problem right now is COVID.
Absolutely. Indeed, our biggest problem right now is pandemic, but this pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic. And our response is not as it should be, because we have a clear recovery strategy, and which the analysis indicates that this budget has not responded to that pandemic. In fact, it's a Parliament budget office has indicted Treasury for the way this budget was prepared. It has not taken into consideration the post-economic recovery strategy. Like I mentioned, the allocation for social protection, on average, we needed to have provided approximately 53 billion, for this response. We've barely provided a fraction of this to hunger safety nets, social protection, approximately 12 billion, of which some part of it also comes from the donors. What's been more indicating is that our reliance on donors within this time has also gone up. While we have upped our allocation towards infrastructure and new projects that we can do without. And I remember one of the speeches that the president said is, we cannot save lives, but we can save economies. But if you don't respond adequately, you can't save lives. So we need to take measures, to save lives. And, when you're saving lives is when you need to put those words in context and put resources to those words. And it means providing resources for mass vaccination and mass testing of people. Now, one of the things that is the economic recovery strategy was providing adequate support to level 2, 3, and 4 health facilities at the county level so that the laboratories at that places can be able to test citizens. But it doesn't appear to be anywhere in the budget. Neither does appear to be any conditional grant going towards supporting laboratories at those levels to respond to COVID. And that's the question we're saying, that with the resources that we have, we can do much more, but there's no, I feel there's no attempt to do exactly that.
James, I think, what you're telling us, unfortunately, isn't new. It's the same story. These are new figures. The budget is bigger. But it's really about Treasury saying one thing, gaslighting Kenyans in essence, telling us what we want to hear, that it's a COVID response, we're going to cushion the vulnerable, we're going to spend on health, and then they go around and do something entirely different. And like you said, the Parliamentary Budget Office picked this up all the way from the budget policy statement. So we really need to be alive to the political economy around the budget. There are interests around the budget. And it seems this is the key problem is, where are the interests? And these projects that can't be scaled back are because they are interests that are maybe stronger than the Treasury, interests that maybe the CS has calculated and seen it's not worth taking these on, interests that even Parliament won't take on. So, one, we have political interests, and many of these are corrupt political interests, because they are interests that must be paid. That money needs to go out. But the question I ask is, Kenya has received one tranche of this IMF facility. Kenya is already beginning to breach the policy commitments it made. Do you think we have an opportunity to stop the subsequent? Or is IMF also not listening to the facts?
What I keep thinking is our IMF and these guys are literally our biggest problems. It's not in their best interest for us to be functional as an economy or a democracy. So because they have to keep their jobs and they have to please their masters. And every time you notice that the biggest problem we've had is IMF always putting our revenue projections and growth as an economy at a percentage or more than a percentage higher. So it ensures that we put a deficit. We always have our deficit.
Sure.
Our revenue deficit over the last few years has on average 7%. Now, 7% of 2 trillion or thereabouts, or 3 trillion, we are talking about 200 billion every year that is unfunded, courtesy of picking up projections from IMF and other bodies that give us money, because
James,
they will give you projections.
I really have to ask you this question: are you telling me that there are no economies on this planet who have received funding from IMF and World Bank and haven't straightened out their
issues? That because of the funding that they have received, then they can get back on the straight and narrow, essentially, and be fine.
Or are you saying that the funding that the IMF and World Bank give third world countries is completely different from the one that they give Asiatic countries or some of these collapsing European economies?
Sometimes we want to look at practical cases of where IMF came in and helped anyone out of the life support. It has to take your personal efforts as a country. If IMF walked into Argentina, left Argentina in a crisis, Mozambique in a crisis, even when they give a clear verdict that your economy looks healthy, and then they leave you dry.
No, James.
Let James continue. Speak. Say it.
James.
Let James speak.
No, okay,
Who
James
has sent you city? Let James finish.
We
talked about Argentina, Mozambique.
No, the list is long.
Yes.
The list is very, very long.
Whose health?
James,
the question is,
James actually knows. James knows what I'm asking, because the truth of the matter is, yes, IMF is a bank. Banks look after their interest.
Yeah. Primarily.
Yes, primarily, yes. But it's also not in their interest to give you money and to have you collapse completely. It's really not in their interest.
They need to keep you on the machine, at least.
Even if you're just on life support,
yes.
They need you on that life support. The point I'm trying to get at, James, and I'll let you continue the Argentina story because I particularly like it, is that, is it possible that our World Bank friends and IMF friends get duped by these lovely papers that countries like ourselves produce. Because if you ask us to explain these things on paper,
you believe.
We do a wonderful
sign
job.
the check immediately.
You also just want to ask who developed those papers in the first place.
There's that little question, yes. So, but please continue, James. Now that we've determined that it is us with the help of IMF who developed those papers.
Exactly. So it's shielding interest, selfish interest. But you also realize at some point when you kick them off and take fiscal consolidation seriously, we tend to grow. Economies tend to grow. And I'll take a practical case of Kenya in 2002 all the way to 2005, 2006. Just a little bit ignoring, and taking practical steps as an economy. Avoid crowding out private sector in the economy by borrowing, because it's cheaper to borrow, it's in terms of processes, it's cheaper to borrow internally, but then it's the safest means. And I keep mentioning, I think 2005, 2006, we borrowed zero from the economy. What the trigger effect was that banks would hawk loans, and then my side hustle would get funding from the bank, and then I would have unfortunately to pay more taxes. But as long as the bank is assured that I'm a risky customer and government is willing to buy the money that they are holding, then definitely I will give to the bank. That's not the best interest. That's what the IMF, they might say that you're crowding out private sector, but they also ensure that the banks continue to give the government as much money as possible. Because then, looking at the resources banks are giving to government, they are huge. And we think around, in the coming financial year, we have approximately on debt and debt repayment, domestic market is owed by government approximately 700 billion. Imagine that 700 billion was used to trigger the economy, to push it out to the private sector. The government did not borrow from the banks. It would have a ripple effect in the economy.
Okay, James,
I don't think that's the interest.
James, I want to ask exactly then what Kenyans would experience. Because, a lot of times this conversation is happening in a cloud or in a bubble for a lot of Kenyans. But if we can bring it home and say, this is the effect of not having a practical working budget in the country. This is how it's going to affect you as a Kenyan from one space to the next. But I want to take a break. 1 minute. Hold on to that and we'll come back and look into the answers of that. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It's the Situation Room.
Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
For many of us, home is a place where we find our inner peace. A place where we find the most comfort. A place where we recharge. A place where we create laughter and all the good memories. But most importantly, a place where we all belong. At KTN Home, we believe there is something for everyone. So catch all the comedy, telenovelas, Nollywood, music, sporting action, kids shows, documentaries, movies, dramas, and reality shows, all to make you and your family feel right at home. You can also stream live at www.standardmedia.co.ke/KTN Home/live on your favorite device. KTN, welcome home.
There are so many people peddling what is false and that it bears remarkable resemblance to what is true.
Politicians have their agenda, and their agenda is to use every opportunity to sell that agenda and to loot this nation.
I have seen major strides that are done in this country when we talk to each other as against talking at each other.
We start getting back into the tribal cocoons which were put to us by the colonial powers. They gave us physical freedom but not mental freedom. We're still mentally colonized today into these cocoons of tribe.
Now, if you live in an area where it's difficult to find a dog,
he's a goat. I kid you not.
In which part of this country is it difficult to find a dog? Such that you resort. Afande umbo yako iko na
nini umba special.
This is the Situation Room the only way to start your day. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
And, James Marguri is helping us kind of unpack this morning. So before we even get to this issue of how it's going to affect Kenyans, James, you alluded to something earlier, that the IMF continues to allow the country to borrow funds knowing that we're on this machine that CT has talked about. You're already in a resuscitatory mode. You need help, already on your knees. And if the IMF really was involved in development of countries by giving this funding to allow you to develop, why continue giving money? Why continue giving funds to a country that is already in bad stead? Why do that?
It's neocolonialism.
Okay.
Really. The intent is, as long as I have chained you, you got to beg me to go and get you food because you can't move. And that's practically the way it happens. And we have to look at it from that perspective. That's really, IMF, it's a good thing, but it's not our friends. You know, we need to understand. And their interest is to serve itself as an institution.
Yeah.
So, and what happens most of like I mentioned, it's always they will put a figure or a number, economic growth, and say we grow by 7%. And this is always a reason so that they say that if we endorse your growth parameter, then we expect that other people would come and invest in your economy. That's why they will place that premium on your growth. But it's never always the case. The risks, for example, for Kenya are different. Like now we are talking of political uncertainty within the next 1 year or so.
Yeah.
So IMF tells you you're going to grow by 7%, 6.4%. But our politics, we know every election year, our economy shrinks.
So is it a lie? Is it a lie? Because, we can use other descriptions and we can fancy and dress it up.
Definitely
and say, is it a lie?
It's a lie.
What hand was it? Are they deliberately ignorant?
It's a neo-colonial lie.
James,
Absolutely.
you have made Wanjiro's day.
By using that one, by calling it what it is.
Neocolonialism is not just music to her ears; it's oil to her bones. She is a happy person. In fact, the rest of her day is going to be happy. But James, let me ask this question, okay? In terms of simply borrowing and the amounts we are borrowing, if we had the fiscal maturity and responsibility that is required, would these amounts we are borrowing actually be a bad thing?
No, it will not be a bad thing. But the question is, why are we borrowing? But you see, and also we have documented adequately that we borrow to steal.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's the most unfortunate thing. And I will take you back even all the way from including the Eurobond. If you look at the audit reports, we could not even trace where those resources are, which is completely a breach of our statutory provisions, that you only borrow money for development. But nowadays we borrow to steal and eat instead of developing ourselves.
And
then we call and say, yeah.
The IMF program does not deal with that problem. So it's a palliative.
Is it their job?
Actually, it's a palliative. It's a little pill to make things look okay for a little while, but it's not really dealing with the core driver of debt.
Whose responsibility is it to deal with the core driver of debt for a nation? The IMF can be at a point, exactly. The IMF can be at a point whereby, guess what? They're doing their business. If we want to be really honest about this, the IMF was set up to do just that. They're going to give you money. It's not their job to be moralistic or responsible about the nation's budget or their development. They give out the money, you pay it back. They give conditions for it, well and good. But in terms of the management of your national policies and developments, I don't think that's their responsibility.
Actually, they think it isn't, but the morality of the issue is their problem, because when you have what James has described adequately happening, it's immoral. It will have consequences not just on the payment, but on the very people whose monies help pay that loan.
But then you have people who stand in the position as watchdogs, leaders in this country who see these things happening, and are the ones then who are supposed to be able to say, hold on a minute, this is what we are seeing. We have a protection policy that we must institute in this country as concerns our people and their livelihoods, even if it is coming to us ho-ha, as we say. you can deal.
When you have a problem,
because Ndu is saying this. IMF has ticked their box.
They've done their job.
They've served their master. Kenya will not collapse economically.
Yes,
see,
James.
Let me say, when you have a problem, an addiction problem, for example, the much that your family and friends can do is take you to a rehabilitation center.
Yes.
And then you can have a choice to jump out of the fence of the rehabilitation center and go
or wallow in the pit, or you can continue.
Or agree that you have a problem.
Yes.
Or agree you have a problem and help the counselors and psychologists in the rehabilitation center
to help
you overcome the problem. And the problem we have, the addiction, the borrowing addiction that we have, is, we are there, but every time the security system of the rehabilitation school goes down, we jump out, and then we are brought back by force because we have a problem. And that's what IMF does, trying to take you. They'll give you and help cushion you a little bit, but essentially it's up to you to take the hard decision. And this includes, for example, we're talking about the consolidation, looking, at our, wage bill within the civil service. And the IMF takes the easiest cut. They will say, for example, the wage bill is a problem, and which nowadays I don't even sometimes think the wage bill is a problem as a country is a problem. But it's become one of the things we look at. We need to look, for example, what the Salaries and Remuneration Commission is doing, realigning the allowances. You have government people, officers who get paid a practicing allowance, a non-practicing allowance. So I employ you because as a lawyer, but then I have to pay you while you're not working for other guy. Okay. But I have the salary for you. And that's part of the reforms that consolidation reforms that have been called. And on average, that would save the country around 3 billion every year if we removed those non-practicing allowance. We'll recheck the travel allowances. We came back to the project that we talk about because.
Talking of projects, James, let me ask a Kibaki question, if I may, please.
Yes.
If we decided that all these delightful development projects that keep sucking in all this money were brought to a halt today.
Not a halt.
No. I'm being punitive. All.
Yeah.
Okay? Were brought to a halt today. Where government is spending money. Not where there are PPPs and people are spending their money. Where we are spending money. And we brought them to a halt.
And where there's no returns. Or where there are corruption inquiries.
The returns are usually in the future. But our main problem with COVID is now, not future is all good and well. How would we benefit if we just halted them and said, okay, folks, halt.
For a while.
For a while. Let's say for a year. That's why I asked Kibaki, because Kibaki did the same thing.
Yes, exactly. And that's what I mentioned, for example. It's been documented by even the National Treasury itself. And, we don't even have to hold all of them. For example, we just need to cut a third of which has been documented, like 174. And not introduce new projects. We'll be saving in excess of 150 billion for 1 year alone. That would be enough to allow us to respond, for example, to the pandemic and provide cushions to the micro and small medium enterprises. You see, and then the other thing is would also allow the things we are pushing, support the private sector, keep off, and it would also mean that you don't necessarily have to borrow, because the new borrowing we are going to take in, for example, domestically and externally is over 300 billion. If you save 150 billion locally in those resources, you cut off. We've got to tighten our belt as a country. We've got, before IMF comes and fits that straight jacket, you have eaten, you have bloated, but then your jacket cannot fit. Somebody has to help you fit it.
Very quickly, James.
It's unfortunate.
Very quickly, literally in seconds. So how important then is talking about these things as we are doing now? How important is it? Because we say, okay, we might be stuck because nothing can be done. How important is speaking about it now?
It is. And I'm very encouraged when the media takes up these slots for citizens to engage, because this is part of public participation conversation. And these people, and they live with us here. So definitely they're listening to the conversation we are having. And we must listen. And when and citizens, for example, when you're having this conversation, talk to your member of parliament. You have the number. You have their Facebook account. They talk to you. They post for you pictures when they are busy.
Ask them these
having
questions.
Political rallies. Ask these questions, because when they come to ask for votes, if you are dead, you are useless.
James Maragori, thank you very much. From the Institute of Public Finance, Asante Sana, for joining us in this conversation this morning. It continues, important for us to keep talking about it. We're coming around to 7 o'clock. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. The conversation continues after 7.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning, this is the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga. President Uhuru Kenyatta has commissioned 2 key road and water projects in Siaya County. Uhuru has commissioned the 2.4 billion shillings Bondo Water Supply Project in the county. The project, implemented by Lake Victoria Waterworks Development Agency, entailed the expansion of water processing infrastructure at Sidindi Malanga Supply to Bondo and Siaya towns and construction of sewer treatment points in the 2 towns. The head of state said the government will soon launch the construction of a mega dam in the region to tame the perennial flooding of River Nyando.
Mradi huu unalenga kupatia watu 200,000 watu wa Siaya. Kwa sababu ya huu mradi watakuwa wanakunywa maji safi kwa boma zao na hakuna kwenda mtoni tena. Na tumesema ya kwamba hatutamalizia hapo, ndio tuhakikishe ya kwamba wananchi wa Siaya County wote wamepata maji ya kutosha. Huu mradi tutapanua mpaka tuhakikishe sio game peke yake, lakini Siaya mzima wananchi wawe na maji safi kwa boma zao.
Former Prime Minister Raila Odinga also spoke at the launch, saying President Uhuru Kenyatta had succeeded in rolling out development projects across the country. Uhuru officially commissioned the Kodianga Wagai Akala and Nyangweso Mohanda roads in Siaya County. The 1.6 billion shillings road network covers a total distance of 38 kilometers and opens up the fish and sugarcane rich region to markets in Kisumu and beyond.
Tangu tuliposalimiana na yeye amesimama kidete, amehakikisha kwamba yale tulikubaliana na yeye yanafanyika yote kote katika nchi ya Kenya, kuanza Lamu, kuingia Mombasa, kuingia Athi River, kwenda Mandera, kwenda Turkana, kila mahali katika Kenya maendeleo yanaendelea. Hiyo ndio Kenya tunataka. Taki madomo tupu, nataka vitendo.
Elsewhere in politics, PEC leader Moses Kuria says he regrets his decision to withdraw from the Kiambaa by-elections. Kuria has had a hard time explaining to the members how he reached the decision. Kuria further says they've agreed with party members to run in the next by-elections without supporting any party, even though they are behind DP William Ruto's bid to become president in the 2022 general elections.
Jambo la kwanza nataka kushukuru party leader wetu Mheshimiwa Moses Kuria. Ni kuanzia sasa hakuna watu tunaenda kuachia viti tena, tunaenda kwa kiwanja tukiwa pep. Watu wengi walikuwa wameanza kuingiza baridi, ikifika mbele labda tunaweza enda ukiwa unaomba kiti usikie Moses Kuria ameenda amenegotiate na amesema sasa pep tumeachia hiyo chama kingine.
Most eye services in Kenya are now offered by Quacks. Jackson Kioko from the Ministry of Health says the Quacks not only prescribe reading glasses in the streets, but also see patients in clinics. He adds that wearing bad glasses can lead to problems such as headaches, blurry vision, nausea or loss of balance. Kioko says they'll launch a crackdown that will inspect all eye clinics and optical shops countrywide. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
All right, we're looking at quite some on Mombasa Road today. So the southern bypass is an absolute standstill towards Langata. There was an accident that happened about an hour ago now, and just getting news of that now. It's really affecting the way things are moving. So you thought you get off Mombasa Road and that you would have it easy, at least joining then Langata Road or going towards Kikuyu. It's going to slow some down this morning because of that accident, and it's not been cleared yet. Hopefully it will be soon. But if you're planning on using the southern bypass to move this morning, there is that situation currently. All right, moving towards Outer Ring, North Airport Road towards Taj Mahal and out. It is slow as you're going out in that direction. Not too bad, but it's your normal Monday morning traffic. This is what we expect to see. What is Thika Road looking like, you're asking me this morning? It is hot. It is heavy. The service lanes not looking too bad. You can use those or just stick on the main highway. It shouldn't be too much of an issue. Then you can use Wangari Maathai Road, longer route into town, but you won't get stuck in the traffic. So it looks crazy, thumping everywhere we're looking at now. As you're getting towards Ngara also, and the Globe Cinema overpass, you will then get into town without being being in too much of a pickle, but it'll be slow. Okay, where else are we looking at issues? The bypasses, apart from the southern, are looking pretty good. Eastern and Red Hill will give you some good vibes this morning. Let's talk to each other, shall we? SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Get in touch. Text on 40127. It's Monday. We want to keep things moving.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room. The only way to start your day.
The only way to start your day. Where are you tuned in from this fine Monday morning? I had said 7 o'clock, but it is actually 8 o'clock, just so that you don't get confused. 94.4 in Nairobi, 87.9 in Mombasa. I know, back in debt, right? Nakuru 96.0, 96.7 in Eldoret, 90.9 in Nyeri, 102.5 in Kisumu, and 97.9 in Malindi. Are you online? You are on SpiceFM KE. Live streams are up on YouTube, on Twitter, and on Facebook. And for our audience, KTN Home, we are live now. Your radio experience on TV starts now, and we welcome all of you, and I say Asante Sana for joining us. This is The Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. C.T. Muga, our guest host, Wanjiro Ikonyo for this week, and Ndu Oko as we open up conversations today. Before we do that, let's go to a proverb, C.T., for this morning.
Right. One tree doesn't make a forest. You would think it's obvious, isn't it?
You would think.
Mm-hmm.
But
tree
no.
Doesn't make a forest.
Right.
Yeah. It does seem obvious. Very well aligned to common sense.
Is it also not true that the things that we think, good word that we think are obvious, are the things that form that composite of what you call common sense? And the thing that is unique about common sense is uncommonality. Just when you think it would be in abundance,
it's missing quite some.
Its scarcity is the thing that you notice and observe more than anything else.
Wow. That is also true. That is also true.
Right. It would seem that some things would be common sense as we're talking about budget issues today.
Exactly.
It would seem that as you went into a year and a half of a pandemic, it would appear that it would be only common sense that when you're then going to budget for the next year, noting that you're still in a year of pandemic, you're still in pandemic times, and you've seen that your health system has some holes here and there, it would seem like common sense for you to then budget accordingly, so that a good chunk of this budget goes towards plugging those holes and making sure that your country is healthy, your people are healthy, and that your systems are working. It would appear so.
It would. That is common sense.
That's common sense.
And like Citi has said,
it's scarce.
It is scarce. Completely.
Okay. So we're having a conversation about this week. We're looking at the budget 2020. We're looking at Kenya's money situation, and this morning we're looking specifically at the budget for health and asking very pertinent questions in terms of, so here we are with a budget in the next 1 month to be presented to the country, and looking at the major problem that has stifled growth being a health pandemic. What is the country doing to make sure, what is the government doing to make sure that its people are cushioned? And we continue with that health conversation now, and we will be joined on the line today with Bernard Shearer. Bernard Shearer is a director of a program called Innovate Now, and that program is run by the African Medical and Research Foundation, otherwise known as AMREF, and he joins us on the line. Good morning. Bernard, good morning to you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Karibu sana. You're in the room this morning with Siti Muga, myself, Ndu, and Wanjiro Gikonyo. And we're opening up this conversation. And the unique thing about having a conversation with you is that you run a program where you're looking at a lot of these issues, but then also dealing on a personal level with a lot of them, like many Kenyans do, but then really don't have a platform upon which to agitate for these issues. So here we are, Bernard. Budget year, or rather budget month is 30 days away. And there are certain things that we would hope would be done, especially when we're looking at the times that we currently exist in. But unfortunately, it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. It doesn't seem like a commitment towards healthcare and proper health systems is going to happen. From your point of view, before we even get into it, what do you make of the commitments that we've seen so far?
Yeah, so let's look at it this way. Kenya is a little bit maybe over 50 years in terms of self-rule. I think tomorrow is it's 1st of June. We are celebrating self-rule. And when you look at what we are celebrating in terms of this self-rule, the one thing that sticks to my mind is over this decade, how healthy is our nation? And if you want to know how healthy your nation is, you have to look at the most vulnerable in that nation to gauge your exposure. And of course, we are striving toward 2030. It's the target where we have even the sustainable development goals. And one of these goals is actually health and well-being. And so coming from a pandemic here, I think this pandemic has really exposed the underbelly of, our health systems across the continent. And for me, for Kenya particularly, I know we've made steps with our NHIF, which is, the backbone or the last line of, defense for the common mwananchi that will get you a hospital bed and will get you medicine when you go in hospital. But have we done enough? I don't think so. Are we prepared enough for what's coming? I don't think so. Are there things we can do? Definitely there are things we can do. And I hope we'll be talking about some of them in this conversation.
Jumping right into it, Bernard, what are some of those things that we should do vis-a-vis what is actually being done?
Absolutely. I believe one of the first things we should do before we do anything else, I think we need a metric to measure the health status of our country. So when I say a metric, I mean, now we're talking about budgeting, but how good is our data for this budgeting? We now have health as a devolved system in this country. And if you do, an audit or a check of our primary health care, how are we preparing to boost this primary healthcare system to cater for everyone? And there's this word I love called inclusion, where you're not designing society for a particular group, but you're designing it for everyone so that everyone can thrive. And one of the things we don't have is a good way to collect continuously good data that can help us to do proper planning. Number two, we are now going through a pandemic. Initially, when this pandemic started, the healthcare system literally repelled COVID-related hospitalization, and even testing is not affordable for the general mwananchi. And when I look at some of the most vulnerable groups that we have in this society, and I belong to one of them, and that is persons with disabilities, how are we ensuring that they are not suffering the most in this pandemic? Are we taking care of them? Do we have data to show how many are getting tested, access to testing? How many are getting prioritized for vaccines? And I think when we start with taking stock, when we start looking, do we have data? then we can begin to talk about what type of a nation do we want. And I think the other thing we have to look at very seriously as a country, as we plan, is how much budget are we allocating for innovation. And when I talk about innovation, it's not, it's not rocket science. It's basically solving problems by leveraging on the best available technologies to get different results. I think one of the things we're suffering from in this country is doing things all over doing things the same all over and expecting different results. And that never happens. So we need to leverage on the innovation capacity of this country to ensure that we are actually solving our own health problems, building local solutions, building capacity, and giving and putting the most vulnerable in our society at the front line of this planning.
I'd like to ask you a question, if I may. You did mention that we don't have very good means of collecting data. Could you expound on this and say a little bit of what it is you mean by that statement?
Yeah, I think I'll just use an example. We just had a census recently, yeah? And when you look at the national census, it does not happen every day. I think it happens every 10 years.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
A lot of the planning that, this country for many years has been doing has been based on data that is 10 years old. Now, the thing I want to ask is, if you're planning with the data that was collected all these years ago, how are you projecting your needs into the future? So when I mean we need to do better planning and better data collection, what I mean is we have to be a metrics-driven nation. Our counties have to leverage on the best available technology. And today's technology is not a reserve of, one sector. We've seen governments in other countries that are more advanced than us basically solve problems because they are continually collecting data, they are continually analyzing that data, and they're using that data to plan. So when I mean we need to do better data collection, exactly what I mean is our county government should be the best at telling us how many persons with disabilities in your county, for example, have not gotten tested for COVID. How many are having are more at risk if they get this COVID or any other element? Let me not just talk about COVID. And when you're planning, there's something we call projecting into the future, because you're not just planning for now, you're planning for the whole year until we are reading another budget. And I think how this can be achieved, of course, is through leveraging on our national, we do have K and SPS, but we also need to do proper public-private partnerships that are able to leverage on the capacities within academia, the capacities within private sector, and the innovation and solutions that are being built by entrepreneurs to solve some of these problems that we have.
Yeah, can I jump in? You talked about primary health care, and of course primary health care is very important, and county governments play a very important role. From the point of view of AMREF, I know you work very closely with government, you've worked very closely in the COVID response. What was the status of primary health care at the outset when the pandemic broke? And have we seen improvements now? And do you think there is enough investment in that primary health care? And maybe this is happening under the universal health care system as well. So maybe you can enlighten us on where are we? Have we made gains? And are the investments adequate, or do we need more?
Thank you. So, I work for a division of AMREF that really leverages on technology to solve social health problems or public health problems, and that is AMREF Health Innovation. And, from my perspective, AMREF has been trying to really be the driver of this conversation called universal health coverage. And this is actually one of the pillars of what we are talking about here. Can every Kenyan access primary health care affordably without breaking the bank? So where are we? I think we are at a point where we have made some gains. I talked about we do have an operational, at least, national health fund, which gives every Kenyan access to primary health care. The problem around how I see this is that, first of all, and this goes back again to the data conversation, how do we actually measure, the effectiveness of this NHIF in terms of resources? We've had in the media reports in the past of mismanagement of funds. We've had this country even receive grants to respond, for example, to primary healthcare challenges, including something like this pandemic. But how much of that has been used to boost our NHIF so that it actually covers everyone? And one of the things I want to mention to you here is, in terms of where we are, we are just starting this journey. Until we get, one of the biggest problems we have in this country is we are underinsured. The last time I checked our statistics on insurance, and I know there are different forms of insurance, but in this case, I will talk about health insurance. We were doing under 2% as a country. But NHIF is boosting that, and it's trying to give everyone access to basic primary health care. And what AMREF has been doing is to work closely with government and the private sector to actually increase those numbers, specifically amongst the most marginalized. But more needs to be done for groups like persons with disability, because, for example, I can tell you, NHIF does not cover regular medication that is taken by some persons with disability. It does not cover assistive technologies, which include things like wheelchairs, hearing aids, and these are actually enshrined in the law, international law that Kenya subscribes to, and this is called the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability, and we are party to that international law. It has been operationalized in Kenya through the Disability Act of 2003. But to this date, I can tell you that most persons with disability cannot access these basic products and services that they need, not to be a level higher than anyone, but to be at par.
Bernard, I've got to ask you, Bernard, is this because of lack of knowledge of what these needs are, or are we looking at a lack of priority? Because also when we look at budgets, there are a plethora of people who are involved in the process, and it involves experts in different sectors to say, all right, if we're going to budget in this area, you need somebody who needs to be then aware of what is needed before then you apply certain kinds of funds or revenue towards it, right? Now, from your knowledge, because we're looking at, health all encompassing, right? But then there's certain parts of it that would need an extra eye. So when we say that this section has not been paid adequate attention to, is it because it is not prioritized, or is it because that there is a lack of knowledge and understanding as to what the needs are, and so that's why somebody else would get a larger chunk, for example?
Yeah, and that's a very good question, because I think it's actually a mix of both. When you look at prioritization, let me begin with prioritization. For many countries, and this is not unique to Kenya, when it comes to some issues like disability, this is usually the last to be addressed. When people are addressing other needs of society, when people are addressing marginalized groups, persons with disability will usually be the last ones to be mentioned. So how this has actually been tackled is, of course, in Kenya, we have a very progressive constitution that actually entrenches these rights in the constitution. And we also have the Disability Act, which is very old. And I know the Senator for Persons with Disability has been trying to amend this law so that some of these things can actually be effected. So on prioritization, I think, in my view, any country that prioritizes health, inclusive healthcare, meaning that everyone is covered, that is a kind of country that can actually, emerge and actually, when you're talking about development in Africa, it is a country that secures the health of the people first that will actually be successful. And when it comes to the issue of awareness, we actually have a huge problem in that aspect. And I work in this sector. It's a part of the health conversation, actually. But when you ask many people what assistive technology is, it is not something that for a long time has been prioritized or actually been discussed as a need. And when you have data that's telling you that 15% of the global population has one or more forms of a disability, we are talking of a billion people globally. In Kenya, when we did our last census, I think it is last year, we see data telling us that at least 1 million people in Kenya have one or other forms of a disability. And some of the needs that come with it are actually anchored on healthcare.
Right.
So how are we leveraging on innovation to help us solve this? And I'll speak a little bit about that as we proceed, because there has been some progress in this, and I think Kenyans need to know, but we can do more.
But
Go ahead.
Bernard, you used the term universal health cover. Government uses the term universal health care. This has become quite political. What is Kenya doing, and what does Kenya need based on what you're telling us?
Yeah. First of all, I think when it comes to this topic of healthcare and universal health cover or coverage, I think the basic understanding here that we have to get is very simple. Does every citizen of this country have access to quality, affordable primary health care? That means, if you fall sick, is it easy, regardless of a disability or age or gender, is it easy for you to access healthcare? That is what we are talking about when it comes to universal health cover or coverage. Of course, how this is covered is through insurance schemes, and also ensuring that the private sector is incentivized or works together with government to actually have favorable insurance policies. For example, it is very unfair for any insurance company at this point in time to say they are not covering COVID-related hospitalization. Why? This is the time when insurance is needed to save our people. There are many people in ICU with severe COVID paying from pocket, and despite having insurance, they cannot actually get covered. And I'm speaking about this from a very personal perspective as well, of a family member. So then when you talk about what do we need to do? We need to, first of all, not just plan for the here and now. We need to look at the capacity of local manufacturing in the healthcare sector. We have some of the leading research institutions in Africa in health. Look at Cambridge. Some of the most respected scientists in the world have come from Cambridge. But how are we budgeting to actually ensure we have capacity to do local production? Because the moment you don't have that capacity and the borders are closed, what happens? We are now crying for COVAX because we did not anticipate that at some point we need to have our own vaccine.
But to be fair, Bernard, I mean, COVID turned everybody on their heads.
CT, I know you have a question, and I do this, but I am going to ask you to hold on to your question. Bernard, CT is going to come back after we take this short break to ask you this question and open up this conversation a little bit more. And then we get into the nitty-gritty and say, okay, Kenyans, as a result of a lack of budgeting properly when it comes to healthcare, what are citizens actually suffering from? In addition to CT's question, it's 8:30 on the nose. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. This is the Situation Room. Taking a break for our audience on KTN Home. We'll be back in a short bit.
This is the Situation Room. The only way to start your day. Spice.
Hello.
Halo, umesikia?
Nimesikia nini?
Hujasikia habari? Hebu acha nikuambie. Kile kimetokea.
Hello?
Don't wait for hearsay. Dial *550*1# to read the Standard e-paper from the convenience of your mobile phone for only 20 shillings from your telecom line, and stay up to date for a reliable source with over 100 years of experience with no additional data charges.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. The weather.
It's raining in some parts of Nairobi at 16, highs of 23 today, and coming down to lows of 14. We're looking at light rain in Nyeri as well at 15, highs of 22 and lows of 14. Mostly sunny conditions in Nakuru at 17. We'll see highs of 28. We'll see highs of 25 in Eldoret, where it's sunny at 17, and mostly cloudy conditions at 21 in Kisumu, highs of 29 and lows of 19. Kakamega is mostly cloudy at 22, highs of 30 and lows of 14. 31 will be the high recorded in Mombasa today, where it's raining in some parts at 27. 27 is also what it is in Malindi. It's raining in some parts, highs of 30 and lows of 26. Mostly sunny conditions at 22 in Kampala, highs of 27 and lows of 19. Sunny conditions in Dar es Salaam at 23, highs of 31 and lows of 23. It's mostly cloudy in a pretty chilly Johannesburg at 7, highs of 16, coming back down to lows of 8. Rain showers in Lagos at 26 continue, highs of 31 and lows of 26, and cloudy conditions in Kinshasa at 25 with highs of 34 and lows of 24.
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. 24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Okay, guys, that accident that took place on the southern bypass today is pretty bad because now we have traffic backed up all the way outbound on Mombasa Road. So it's quite heavy coming from General Motors heading towards the exit at Ole Sereni. But then you're going to be caught with traffic right there, and it leads basically all the way to Langata Road at the exit. So also traffic coming off the ICD route this morning is going to be stalled as you then connect to the southern bypass. It's a mess. The lorry that had overturned is yet to be removed, and so we have a tailback of traffic. If you're headed in that direction and you've not quite caught on just yet, this would be a good time to turn and use an alternate route, or just go straight along Mombasa Road and don't get off the exit. There's bad traffic on the southern bypass this morning. Just a warning for you to understand what it's looking like this morning. An accident took place an hour ago. It's yet to be removed, and major traffic on Mombasa Road spilling over to the bypass. All right, so coming off of Thika Road, it's not so bad as its sister over here on Southern. The service lanes are not looking too bad right now. You might want to use that. All right. A northern outer ring, Taj Mall, also there, quite some traffic, but it'll get you into the city. The longer route, if you take it without too much of a headache. SpiceFM KE, that's how you can get in touch with us on Twitter. Text on 40127. As most as we can, we'll keep things moving this morning.
87.9 Spice FM. Mombasa.
Have you seen them? Am I live?
Yes, it's a very nice outfit, I must say. Good
Thank
job.
you. Asante sana.
The compliment is well received.
Good morning and thank you. Evan Wasingishi was asking me what channel is Spice FM.
96.7. Tell them that, right?
Yes, now they know.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
to be here.
Pleasure to have
you. What a beautiful studio, my friend. I've been to other radio stations, but I've never seen anything like this.
Thank you. And it's very nice to be in a modern studio. Absolutely brilliant.
And I have to say, it's a very cool ambiance here in your radio room. Just for our listeners, I think it is below zero in this room here. Very Swiss temperatures.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM,
Nairobi. Around the
Nairobi.
country this morning in Nairobi, 94.4 Kisumu, where things are happening tomorrow, 102.5. And if you're online this morning, Spice FM KE on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. It's the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. And we continue our conversation this morning, and we're looking at the budget. It's coming up in about a month, and we're asking ourselves the question, health-wise, has enough been done? Will enough be done? Looking at a pandemic in which we are facing currently, where are we? Siti Muga in the studio this morning, Wanjiro Gikonyo and Ndroko, looking at these issues, trying to open them up. Join on the line with Bernard Chira, who is the director for Innovate Now with AMREF Kenya. And Siti, as we're going on break, you're asking a question.
I actually wasn't asking. I was just contributing to what Bernard was saying. And I was going to say that when we're discussing COVID, the reality is people are at different levels of handling it. They open up the economy. They have to shut down certain segments of it. They have vaccinated 50% of their population. Growing, meaning it's a work in progress. And before it got here, it's given people a hell of a time. It isn't as though that we are going to get a handle of it. Even when you have vaccinated 100% of your population, the truth of the matter is you are still going to need to continue testing people. And it doesn't mean that once someone has been vaccinated, they will not get COVID. You will. The only difference is you now have protection, and the likelihood of having those extremely adverse effects will not be there. But let me then get to my question. There's something you mentioned earlier on, Bernard, about data. What would you like to see in operation that would specifically benefit people with disabilities? Because you say that according to what we have, our policies are a little outdated. If we were to update them, how would we update them?
Hello, Bernard, are you there?
Yes, thank you for that question.
It's all right, Bernard.
Okay, he can join the conversation. Absolutely.
Say hi to our brother over there and tell him we're fine. And tell him to tell us his name, please.
While he's there.
Yeah, so this is actually my son. So thank you. I really love that question because it actually puts into perspective, something that everyone is talking about. Data is, you had conversations or terms like data is the new oil. But what does it actually mean? It means as a country, as a government, we are doing such a great job in actually collecting data and analyzing data and actually using the tools that we have to give this insight for planning and actually for budget purposes. What I would like to see more is a portal or actually a resource that anyone could go into and actually see what do our projections look like in terms of number of persons with disabilities, for example, in every county, number of the distribution of the needs of these people from a healthcare perspective. And I'm talking about assistive technologies, access to essential medicine, and I think one of the most important things from any budgeting perspective is that at the end of the budget period, not only do you want to report that you met your budget, you want to say that according to the projections which you had, you can actually do a little bit of predictive analysis to actually say, to actually guide the budgeting for that next financial year. And until we start doing that as a country, it's going to be very difficult to actually plan for some of these things, including things that we are not prepared for, like pandemic.
Okay, so I know, Wajira, you had, something along those lines.
Yeah, no, the thing that provoked me was the statement you made before, Bernard, about insurance and the cover of COVID-related. Now, a majority of insurance companies are not covering COVID-related illness. I think there are a few that are. That's not across the board. Just last week, the NHIF has also said they will not cover NHIF-related illness, especially for those members under ordinary cover. Only those with the super cover will be eligible for support. In essence, Bernard, in this country, we know that Kenyans pay for their own healthcare. In fact, the average Kenyan spends maybe 200% of their income on health because we spend more than we have. We sell plots, we do harambes and all of that. So the issue of who pays and the ability to treat ourselves, that problem is still with us. And I think COVID has exacerbated it because people have had to dig very deep to pay. So I don't know, from where you sit, what needs to be done to ensure that government puts in the money into the primary health care, into the COVID support. Let's even, before we start thinking about the policy moving forward, we talk about now what needs to be done to help Kenyans come out of this.
Yeah, so, this question of what needs to be done is something we have to keep asking again and again. But I think one of the most powerful things you can do when it comes to governance is actually civic engagement and public and the voice of the mwananchi. Because at the end of the day, if the people do not have a platform, they do not have a voice, the changes that we want to see will not happen. So one of the things I feel that needs to happen is to amplify the voice of the mwananchi. The mwananchi needs to say that, look, I'm a Kenyan. I am suffering because I cannot afford, the hospitalization of my fellow family member, and ask questions like, why is the health budget not able to help me as a mwananchi? And I think engagement and involvement of the citizens is what any leader who wants to make change in this country has to do. And when we talk about the devolved system of government that we have, especially at the county level, one of the things I would love to know is that when we are budgeting, I saw something very interesting on TV a couple of months back. I think it was Makueni County, where they actually go to the ground and get the priorities from Wanjiku. Are all our counties doing that?
Okay.
That's number one.
Well, I mean, even for you, Wanjiru, as you're looking at this and talking about public participation and then how far public needs to then be involved when it comes to things like this, because majority of the Mwananchi walking into a public facility, walking into a health facility, how guaranteed are you that you will be able to then get the services that you require? And that's what we're talking about now. Prioritizing some of these things and saying, look, before we go out here, let's make sure that down here everybody's taken care of. Because if you want to look at what's happening on a global scale right now, for those countries who are paying their people to be vaccinated, for those countries who are saying get back vaccine passport, what have they done? They have made sure that the people that they govern and lead have been taken care of.
Right.
There's no handout unless what is at home has been cared for.
Totally. And I completely agree with what Bernard is saying, the point you're making. And, the evidence shows that a successful fiscal consolidation program, which is the context in which our budget is being made, requires evidence. So the point that Bernard is making is right on point, that we need to stop this kind of juju that we do with maybe we put some money here, it will help. Where are the numbers? You know, we put all this money in the SGR. Where are the numbers to show how many jobs have been created? You know, how many livelihoods are being improved or will be improved? So we need to move to evidence-based decision-making. We also need the public participation. And public participation, like James said, shouldn't be tokenistic. This government has perfected the art of tokenism. An advert in the paper, asking for submissions, and they do not listen. And they fail to learn from history, which is, in the 1990s, governments admitted we failed our people because we didn't listen, because people know what they need. You know, if you ask people, public participation, what do you need in terms of your healthcare, they'll be able to say.
Right.
So public participation is about the ability to influence outcomes and having meaningful engagement processes. This is what the BBI ruling said. The constituent power of the people cannot be undermined. It is paramount. Now, this government does not listen. They kind of forced infrastructure development projects into the budget in 2013, 2014, 2015, and are shackled to them and have shackled us to those projects, some of which have failed and have continued to add others. And these are squeezing out the meaningful development. Then you hear what Muraguri said. He said that the investment at county level has also decreased because the conditional funds for health have been put into the ordinary share. And once they're in the ordinary share, there is no guarantee it will go to health. So in essence, this government is not applying common sense that we said is very uncommon. And indeed, it's uncommon. And the government is proving that. And the question is, what do we do? The train is almost off the rails. It's been going off the rails because we've been saying this debt issue, it's a train crash waiting to happen. And it's happening in slow motion. And we are on it. And the question is, what do we do? And
do we jump off or hope for the best?
Jump off to where?
You know,
we need a COVID visa. Where are you jumping off to? You know which country is taking?
Where are you going?
You know,
these millions of Kenyans. We are
the
here.
debt issue is a symptom. It's not the problem.
Exactly.
It just, it's like COVID has helped us understand the underbelly of our issues. This
COVID has brought out the cold sore.
COVID has
the virus is inside.
Yes, the virus is inside.
Yeah.
Because if you think about public participation, even before it was enshrined in our constitution, in every human society, people always congregate and talk and discuss their issues. In an African setting, it's even more so. And in the absence of a system where you know you can wholly depend on the government, people have to get together and talk and do all sorts of things.
First of all, we shouldn't have to wholly depend on government. And I like the point that Bernard said, that government has to partner with private sector to be able to deliver health services. And that's what's anticipated under the UHC. The problem is, will it be implemented? So we want to move from dependency on government to more voice by citizens and more self-governance, so that citizens have a more active role in development other than waiting for maendeleo. That's a switch. And I think Bernard also said, leaders who want change. There is a presumption that the common sense approach response to COVID is transformation. It is to say we cannot continue as we are with corruption, with a kind of development that government delivers everything. We need to decentralize, we need to devolve, decentralize, and we need to be accountable. And that takes political leadership. So the other pillar of this, the public participation, using the evidence, political leadership.
Wanjiru, that particular thinking is correct insofar as it's aspirational, in that politicians ought to. We know they won't. So those who actually do are such a small number that statistically they're almost irrelevant.
I agree.
But the issue, and this one, we will never tire of saying it.
Speaking about it.
Yes, because so long as people do not hold their leaders accountable, well, then what do you think you will expect?
Maybe we change the statement from political leadership to leadership.
So
wherever that leadership comes from,
Yeah.
Wherever the leadership comes from, you saw that the bishops last week released a statement. That is leadership. leadership will not come. What we are saying is the political class has let us down. There are very few in the political class who are using common sense and the interests of Wanjiku. But leadership does not only reside in the political class, and maybe that's where our mistake is.
You know, Wanjiro,
so change will come
everything
from leadership.
that we talk about in this country and everything that happens, unfortunately, the political leadership hogs the bulk of the powers that have to do with decision making. Because of those powers, parliament captive, okay? Civil
Political
service
leadership.
captive.
Political leadership.
Yes. The only institution that seems to be breaking the mold and trying to sort itself out in the three arms of the government seems to be the judiciary.
The judiciary.
Yes.
Can I convince you?
Can I ask Bernard something? I mean, just coming into that in terms of priorities now, Bernard, is that are we seeing that talking about these issues or agitating for them will bring about a little bit more than, you know, unseating any kind of uncomfortability? It beyond making the powers that be, quote unquote, is there something that can be done forthwith? Because we're not looking at a disaster in the making. We're talking about a disaster today. Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Bernard.
Yeah. I think I just want to put into perspective some of the, things that we can do now, and some of the things we ought to have done, and some of the things we actually need plan to do in the future. One, by now we ought to, because one of the things we have that I see as citizens we've not been able to actually fully leverage or take advantage of is our constitution. We have one of the most progressive constitutions in this country, but the average citizen does not know how to demand their right. Okay? So one of the things we have to have already done is to actually understand that I, representing Wanjiku in this country, I have a voice. Today, luckily, people talk about channels, but when you are on social media, it's like being on the front page of a newspaper or a radio station, because everyone is going to hear about it. So I think we need to start using channels and tools like we have on social media to push agendas that are important, to give voice to the citizenry, so that these things can be prioritized. Number two, we have to change the way we are doing things. Otherwise, we will not get any different results. And I think this is common sense. Somebody talked about common sense here. So I think what we ought to be asking ourselves right now, what is it that we are doing the same every year and expecting a different outcome? And I think one of those things is everything, even public participation, which I have seen to a certain extent, is usually a last-minute thing for compliance, even when laws are being passed. And I think we need to change the culture we have as a country and actually do the things that sometimes, people say, what difference will it make if I call out my leader on social media and demand my right? Or what difference will it make if I actually say, no, this is not the right thing to do? What difference will it make if I question and ask about, are my needs catered for in the next financial year, in the budget to come? And I think, the things we have to start looking into the future and start doing, both as citizens and also as government, is actually to say, what is this country that we are trying to look for, where health as a basic human right is catered for, and how do we start basically planning and putting resources in the right place and creating visibility for these resources. Let me say one of the worst things that can happen is if, for example, if you don't know or you can't see how money is being spent, how do you even begin to call out misuse of resources or poor budgeting. So how are we going to be prepared in the future to say, and I'll give an example here because I work in the space of disability, but what we are doing different is to say disability will not be sorted by charity anymore. We want persons with disability to be looked at, not just as beneficiaries, but as one, people. That's number one. Number two, as people who are users and preferences and who can actually have choice, not to be told, okay, you have a disability, let's give you this. No. If I need a wheelchair, have you asked me whether this wheelchair is appropriate for me? Is it the right size? Is it made to meet my needs? Can I use this wheelchair to navigate the crazy terrains that we have out here? So one of the things we are doing different, and this is something we have to do different, is we have to be innovative as a country. And innovation is all about looking at the problems we have and saying, how can we, one, use new technologies to solve this problem? Two, leverage on the talent and capacities we have as a people. Kenya is one of the most educated countries in Africa. We have some of the best people here. We have some of the best solutions here. How are they being leveraged to solve the problems that we have? And then the ultimate one here is governance. And we have to care about our country. We have to not go along with this notion that, corruption is the endemic disease that is never going to end. We have to put a stop to it using data. Let's create visibility. Let's have channels where we can demand our rights. Let's engage the citizen and allow them to actually highlight their needs.
Thank you.
Is what, yeah.
I mean, there's a lot to talk about to cover this, but I mean, just from what you've said, a good place to wrap up this conversation this morning. Bernard Chira, who is the director of Innovate Now with AMREF Kenya. Asante Sana for joining us this morning. We have to take a break with our audience on KTN Home, but the conversation continues on SpiceFM, and you can log on to 94.4 in Nairobi and in other cities around the country, and also online, SpiceFM KE on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. The conversation continues right after this.
Have you seen them? Am I live?
Yes, it's a very nice outfit, I must say. Good
Thank
job.
you. Asante sana.
The compliment is well received.
Good morning and thank you. Everyone in Singishi was asking me, what channel is SpiceFM?
96.7. Tell them that, right?
Yes, now they know.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have
you.
What
a beautiful studio, my friend.
I've been to other radio stations, but I've never seen anything like this. Thank you. And it's very nice to be in a modern studio. Absolutely brilliant.
And I have to say, it's a very cool ambiance here in your radio room. Just for our listeners, I think it is below zero in this room here. Very Swiss temperatures.
Yeah, so coming out to a few minutes to 8 o'clock and just looking at that conversation, guys, and asking ourselves, here we are in a few days. Yeah, a few, because 30 is few, where are we going? Where will we be? And what will we see are the results of possibly what could be bad decisions when it comes to how the country is then ruled money-wise?
I think there are socio-economic crimes being committed against the people of Kenya through the hijacking of the budget process, so that we have a constitution that anticipates a vibrant, engaged process, but this process has been captured. And when we talk about state capture, this is what capture looks like. And there's state capture, but there's also other forms of capture, because there are so many interests around legacy projects, around those, there are 500 stalled projects that continue to be funded. How is this possible? It comes down to the citizens. It comes down to leadership. And we are saying that leadership is likely not going to come from the political class. It has to come from the citizen class through movements, through online petitions.
And through engagements such as this?
Engagements like this, through the media.
It's coming to 9 o'clock. The conversation continues after this.
spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning, this is the Newswire. I'm Leah Ibarra. President Uhuru Kenyatta will today flag off wagons carrying fuel from the Kisumu port to Uganda. Uhuru has already commissioned 2 key road and water projects in Siaya County worth 2.4 billion shillings. The project implemented by Lake Victoria Waterworks Development Agency entails the expansion of water processing infrastructure at Bondo and Siaya towns and construction of sewer treatment points in the 2 towns.
Mradi huu unalenga kupatia watu 200,000 watu wa Siaya, kwa sababu ya huu mradi watakuwa wanakunywa maji safi kwa boma zao na hakuna kwenda mtoni tena. Na tumesema ya kwamba hatutamalizia hapo, ndio tuhakikishe ya kwamba wananchi wa Siaya County wote wamepata maji ya kutosha. Huu mradi tutapanua mpaka tuhakikishe sio game peke yake, lakini Siaya mzima wananchi wawe na maji safi kwa boma zao.
Mombasa County is on high alert after 3 people were confirmed to be infected with the COVID-19 Indian variant. Chief Health Officer of the county, Pauline Oginga, says that 2 of the 3 arrived in the country on the 18th and 19th of last month via JKIA Airport in Nairobi. They later made their way to Mombasa via road transport, while the ban on entering and leaving Nairobi was still being enforced. One of the 2 is a Kenyan national who had traveled to India to care for a patient and then returned on the 18th, and the other is an Indian national who works in the country and returned on the 19th. She says the health status of the 3 is being monitored and a search for people associated with the 3 is ongoing. Kimilili MP Didmus Baraza says President Uhuru Kenyatta mounting an epic legal battle in the Court of Appeal isn't good, as it's intimidating the court. Baraza says the president should be impartial. He adds that the BBI roadmap should be rerouted from a popular initiative to a parliamentary one, which is much simpler.
All arguments that are taken to the court, regardless of whether one wins or loses, are meant to develop our laws, and that the head of state, being the head of one arm of government, should be able to be impartial, and it should look at the outcome of the court, not to see that the matter has been properly judged beyond reasonable doubt, but just a balance of probabilities. If there is every likelihood that some elements of the laws were not being followed, there is nothing wrong from realigning whatever we are doing as government.
Taita Taveta MCAs have passed a motion to pave way for county administration to establish tradition brews outlets in every ward. The MCAs say the organized brewing of traditional liquor will improve the county revenue stream and reduce cases of crime. And finally, gender-based violence cases have increased at an alarming rate for the past 1 year in the coast region. The county government says COVID-19 and cultural practices are some of the reasons attributed to the rise in cases. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
94.4 Spice FM. Nairobi.
Okay, guys, that accident on the Southern Bypass this morning is not looking good at all. Apart from that, the traffic that it has given birth to is quite epic, and it backs up all the way onto Mombasa Road, right easily beyond Airtel, just after you cross over from General Motors. So it's packed, and it's taking you all the way through to the exit on Langata Road. All right, guys, so this is what it looks like there. On Thika Road, coming from the other direction, it's all right. Moving slowly, bumper to bumper in some parts, but at least we have some fluid traffic. Kiambu Road then joining Muthaiga Square, also some issues there, but it'll open up in a bit. We're still in the middle of traffic hour. We have quite some traffic on Gong Road coming through to the roundabout at Citri Mortuary, heading then towards Alvings Kodek or out towards the city. It's not too bad. Coming from Westlands is a dream, actually, and to get to the roundabout at the University Way. So the Southern Bypass is where you should not go if you don't need to, because you will get stuck. The Lekoni interchange also then connecting to that is quite packed this morning. Coming out of industrial area, Lunga Lunga. Okay, so we've not looked at Jogo Road really quickly. What does it look like? It's a mess. Headed to the roundabout at the City Stadium onto Landis Road. Then it evens out just a little bit. Spice of MKE, talk to us on Twitter. Text on 40127. We want to open it up, guys, and keep it moving this Monday morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
We see all you guys on SpiceFM KE on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter this morning in The Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. C.T. Muga, Nduoko, and our guest host for the week, Wanjiro Gikonyo of TISA, is with us this morning. And we're looking into issues that are around the budget and public participation, etc., etc., etc. Before we get back into that, as we're starting off the hour this morning at 6 minutes after 9 o'clock. CT, today's proverb.
One tree does not make a forest.
It does not. One tree does not make a forest.
Mm-hmm.
Voila. Okay. So, last week, a road in the Kileleshwa, do I want to call Kileleshwa a suburb? Yes. Yeah? In the suburb of Kileleshwa, a road was named after COTU Secretary General Francis Atwoli. And that sign was then erected, and there was a little bit of fanfare about the reason it being given was because of his contribution to the welfare of workers in the country and the recognition that he has even received on a global scale in terms of, workers' rights and making sure that they were catered and cared for in whatever situation they live in. That road was the signage was erected, and there was applause, and voila. Now, no sooner had it been erected than it had been felled. And there were some citizens who felt, look here, first of all, a number of things came out, and we saw pictures of the sign having been brought down. But a number of issues came out, and it's upon those issues that we will be discussing in this final hour of the show today. Asking ourselves the question number one: how involved are Kenyans in the naming of public spaces, or in the care of public spaces, or even aware of what is supposed to happen when you look at something like this? Number two, when he was, being celebrated at this point, he did thank the county government. He thanked the national government for having recognized his contribution towards the welfare of workers in the country. So it would appear as though something was being done that was saying thank you for the contribution that he has made thus far. Is that enough for an honor such as this to be bequeathed to this man?
It's so annoying.
Wait now, Ajiro, let me
You're
finish.
going on and on.
Now, let me finish. I have to preamble properly.
Boniface Mwangi received an award from a foreign country this week that passed.
It's like
why
you're annoyed.
aren't we naming him?
It's like you're upset.
For his contribution to the furtherance of constitutionalism and democratic rights in Kenya.
Yeah. Let me finish.
Ask Kenyans to vote.
The
Who do we name? Boniface Mwangi or COTU Secretary General?
The third one, Wanjiro.
Yes.
The third one is that in a case whereby Kenyans have felt that this one is just not justified, are Kenyans justified to take it down? Because this was the argument from Francis Atwoli himself, that you cannot go about, I've even forgotten the word that I want to use now, you cannot go about defacing or, vandalizing public property because you're annoyed. Take your annoyance and your grievances to the proper channels and then get it done properly that way. Go to the county government and say, look, this thing that you guys have actually done, in fact, it was not the right way. We do not like it. Why go and vandalize? Why do that?
You say
vandalism is what he was calling it.
One
Why?
person's vandalism is another person's expression of their public participation right, because public participation channels are not working.
So I take it to mean that you didn't like this thing in the first place, this
No,
erection
I'm so
of this
happy
road.
it was taken down.
Okay, so the erection
So
of the
proud,
road
so
for Francis
proud
Atwoli you did not like.
Kileleshwa residents, those good people who went ahead and represented the wider by bringing
Kenya.
down that post, the wider Nairobi and wider Kileleshwa, more power to you. In fact, there are more signs that should have been taken down. First of all, I thought there was a bylaw that precludes the naming of living people unless it's a president. I thought there was a bylaw like that, but then I don't know, that could have changed. Having said that, like you said, citizens, when you're talking about community, the local level is you're trying to build citizens to own and safeguard and uphold their local areas. So citizens have a right to say, because Article 1, because direct constituent power, as we were told by the BBI, in the BBI court ruling.
Yes.
That is the most powerful power of all. It's more powerful than political power. It's more powerful than executive power. So when it lacks channels of expression, such as proper public participation channels, it will come out in this way. So I'm totally proud.
I have a feeling that you will forever and Milele use the BBI ruling as a point of reference for almost any argument you will have.
I haven't even started. By the way, I haven't even started. That ruling is so profound because it tells our political leaders, hold on a minute, you can't change the constitution. Only the people of Kenya can change the constitution. And even when it's the public participation, the process has to be done properly. Note, the ruling said there has to be civic education. You can't participate people on something they don't understand. Confuse them with issues and propaganda. There has to be civic education. Then there has to be a constituent assembly. That means there has to be a deliberative body that allows citizens to influence, the ability to influence outcomes. Of course, the threshold for the Constitution is a lot higher than the naming of a street. But the principle is public participation isn't a notice in the paper or on the website.
Right.
It is a process where citizens are aware, understand, and able to influence the outcomes, and they are given a just opportunity to do so. So then finally with the public participation process, after the Constituent Assembly, they found that the referendum process can't be based on kind of multiple questions that confuse citizens. Those questions have to be outlined one at a time. So why are you participating? What's the decision you're supposed to make? So when you look at, because people keep asking, so what's the threshold for public participation? How many people? That's not the point. The point is you need the opportunity to influence that outcome. And it needs to be given to the widest cross-section possible, recognizing that, there will be losers and winners because they are all decisions, political decisions to be made. You might ask residents of Kileleshwa and they say, yes, we want Atwoli's name on our street. But if there's been a due public participation process, then you should respect that sign.
So by virtue of the fact that they were not asked, that's what we have issue with.
And,
so it's not
they,
necessarily
not
that Bwana Francis Atwoli is a bad person, but we are saying that the process through which this was done is what residents are taking issue with, and they said, you know what, forget it, knock down.
And maybe
but
he
I think
doesn't
we're looking
represent
at
the values we aspire to.
Right, so we're looking at a duplicity of issues here, that there are folks who are saying, hold on a minute, we're going to put up a road in honor of somebody that we actually don't honor, number one. Number two, even if we were selecting somebody for this road to be named after, we were not asked. Exactly. And we should be asked. Exactly. It's upon that principle that we are arguing. CT, I've been looking at you.
What's your street named, CT? Namtangoa ama mkosawa?
You see, what I'm wondering is, how do we balance this? At what point is the delegated representation relevant when it comes to some of these issues, and at what point must we actually see and actively involve the citizenry in some of this decision making, because if you drive around, you see, we're talking about Nairobi,
right?
But there's street names all over the country, and for the most part, the discussion that takes place is within the assemblies. It was before the municipality, the councillors. Now it is within the local authorities. But what appears to be clear from what I'm hearing Wanjiru say is that with our new constitution and the standard that has been set for public participation, even when it comes to the naming of a road, okay?
Yeah.
People have to be asked.
Yes.
Yes. Now, I don't know whether the people of Kileleshu were asked or not.
They said they were not asked.
You can assume they
No,
weren't.
no. There are people
they
who
said they were not asked.
Look,
You can assume
it brings
they
the third
weren't.
point I want to make. What's the threshold for this asking and the numbers that constitute the public participation?
Is
I'll
it
say,
three?
I've
Three
just
people?
given a whole whatever
Yes,
on
you
the
have.
quality of public participation. Why are you
Yes,
taking us back
I
to
do
this
not have
threshold
a beef-
argument?
I don't have a beef with the quality, because it's like, you see, the argument more or less boiled down to, is Boniface Mwangi more important than Atuoli? In my mind, everybody has their role. Atuoli is not an activist. He is a union leader. So, in essence, he is an activist of sorts, but for a much larger constituency. Boniface Mwangi is an activist of some very, well, of good repute. He stands up for issues of rights, and he is known. But you want to balance between the importance. Franz Atuoli has been on the scene for the longest time possible. Boniface Mwangi is still making his mark, and he'll continue making his mark, I believe. So, I can't diminish either.
Yeah, but
Each is of importance. So, is it that Boniface a street wasn't named after Boniface?
Stop personalizing.
No.
You see, City, what you want to do, because
No, I'm not
I think
personalizing. I am being
your orientation is coming through.
It should.
It's
You
coming
see, the thing
through.
is, so now that
It
I think
should.
that
Because
was, I think
you're,
we need
you're
to now split
personalizing
it.
instead of giving us the principles to help us make a decision.
Okay,
Wanjiru,
so I think what
I am actually using the examples you gave.
Yes, but the point I made is the values. The streets we have, and this opens up actually a wider issue of even how our streets are named at present. Because I believe we do have to go back and ask, what are the values we want these streets to represent?
Okay, I think that's what we can, on that premise, we can come back, because we have to take a break. Wanjiru, breathe in, breathe out. We come back and we continue. It's 17 minutes past 9.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life 24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
All right, it's 17 degrees and light rain in certain parts of Nairobi. We will then see highs of 23 today and lows of 14. Light rain in Nyeri at 15, highs of 22 and lows of 14. It's mostly sunny in Nakuru at 18, going to highs of 28 today. We'll see highs of 25 in Eldoret. It's mostly cloudy at 19. And Kisumu is mostly cloudy at 24, highs of 29 and lows of 19. Mostly cloudy conditions at 25 in Kakamega, 27 and light rain in some parts of Mombasa. It's also sprinkling in some parts of Malindi at 28. It'll go to highs of 30. We'll see highs of 27 in Kampala, light rain at 23 and 25. Mostly sunny conditions in Dar es Salaam, going to highs of 31 today and lows of 23. Partly sunny conditions at 7 in Johannesburg, highs of 16 and lows of 8 and 26. It's raining in Lagos, highs of 31 and lows of 26, and cloudy conditions in Kinshasa at 25, highs of 34, coming down to lows of 24. Rain showers at 20 outside, going east into Beijing. 22 the high and lows of 14. Sunny conditions in Paris at 15 with highs of 24 and lows of 12. It's 11 degrees and hazy in London this morning. 23 the high and lows of 12. New York is waking up to a cloudy morning at 10. It'll go to highs of 22 and come back to lows of 14.
You know, when you see someone being jailed, a governor or two or someone who stole, then people will fear. Because our problem is not the borrowing, it's the stealing.
We've become actually a nation of thieves. The only thing we lack is an opportunity to steal.
The guys who quote the Bible and say I'm a Christian and all that, and you know they're thieves. Return what you have stolen 4 times. If you know that you have property or anything that you have stolen, just return and say, my God does not allow me to hold stolen things.
We are also a reflection of you, because you elect us. You know, we don't get into our office by ourselves. We are a reflection of the people who elect us.
We don't want to go to the streets. We have a constitution that enables us, assert our will.
When the legislature are now being taken as hostage by the executive for whatever reason, we are now bound by what they want us to do.
This is just outside the realms of reality. We have impunity written into the DNA of our political class.
How old were you when you learned that Jeshi Lokop is Jeshi Lawokop?
I can't say it very well. No, you must watch Jeshi Lokop.
And everyone knows. Okay.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
Situation Room is Kenya's biggest conversation, and we are looking at fallen street signs. And maybe even further than that, deeper into the conversation is that, okay, fallen honor. And I think those are threads that are coming out in this conversation today. Nduoko, Siti Muga, and our guest host for today, Wanjiru Gikonyo. Before we went on the break, Wanjiru, so what exactly are we looking at? Because for me, we've seen a fallen street sign, but I think we are hearing voices. We're hearing something that fallen street sign is the representation of.
Nice. Mm-hmm. It's about the community's role in development. It is about the community's role in development. It is that point. The historical way that councillors and so were naming streets, naming themselves, appropriating the political space by naming. It is to say that time is over, and we've seen this with the Black Lives Matter movement, the colonial decolonization process, where the naming of a street, of a statue, is very important in terms of the psychology of a community, of a country. So what we are saying is that we need to reopen that space and make sure that that space is, decisions there are conducted in a way that respects the direct constituent power of the people. But also with direct constituent power of the people, there is responsibility of the people. So that communities need to become more jealous, protective, exercise oversight over their open spaces. Because I'll agree, right now we want the rights, we do not exercise the responsibility. Yeah, for instance, like in our area, an entire road, what's it called? A road guard, like of around maybe some 300 or 200 meters was uprooted and it went.
Why?
And nobody talks.
No one talks. One night people came because, of course, government builds roads, gives you super fast world roads, as you'd call them, and then we deal with them as we will. And road signs or anything that's metal has a secondary value. So it gets vandalized.
So a barrier was those metallic barriers?
Entirely.
Removed. All of it went?
I didn't walk for a while.
Those fellows are quite comprehensive.
I did walk for a while. Then I came back and I was like,
something is not here.
What are all these stubs? I realized the whole thing had been bebwad. About 12 different stubs. It's like a long
By
thing.
the way,
so where were the people?
Okay, let's ask Elijah just before we come back. Elijah's on the line this morning. Elijah, good morning.
Morning.
Good.
How are you guys?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
Fine, thanks. I find it interesting that the discussion was pivoting around the name on the street sign. I think if that street sign had said Thomas Sankara, for example,
no problem.
No issue. And we wouldn't be discussing, the legislature and policy
And public
around
participation.
naming and public participation. We'll just say, good guy, yeah, good guy. Let's move on with life. But the issue here cannot be separated from the personality. So it may be a bit facetious to say, why then not Boniface Mwangi? Because then we are putting ourselves in a position to say that we don't like how these things are named. In fact, had you named as per the guy I like, I would not have a problem. And that's where the delegated representation comes in. If we don't like it, let's get rid of them. But to really drill down on this process, and really the issue is the name on the sign. Let's be honest. He's a polarizing figure, and some people took joy in seeing his name up, and some people took joy in seeing his name down. And that may be the discussion that is not polite to discuss at this point. So I agree with CT when he says, this guy has done what he has done, and he has been there for whatever reason. But to then say, no, let's look at it in this judicious manner of choosing names, I think we are creating a strawman argument if that's the case. We are trying to find fault with the process because we are not happy with the name.
With the character.
I don't agree.
Andrea has something to say about. Okay.
Thank you very much, Elijah.
You know ICT thanks you. Thanks, Elijah, for
gender
that.
balance.
Elijah, thank you for your comments this morning. Go.
Right. No, I think what Tom is saying is not necessarily...
Elijah.
Sorry, yes. Elijah. What Elijah is saying is not necessarily wrong, because yes, it is about the personality, but getting beyond the personality is the process. And what has happened is there's a shift in the mindset that residents stood up now, because I believe there are other signs that have gone up that residents haven't objected and they weren't happy. So there's a shift in a sense where residents are now standing up, and I hope that this will symbolizes the beginning of more active engagement. Right.
Does he have a point, though? What is Doc saying this morning, Elijah, that, if it were not this individual, we would not see all of this engagement that we see. Nobody would really care. The truth of the matter is that when you come to naming of public spaces like this, nobody really knew that in the last how many ever months, a number of roads were renamed, a number of areas were given their names. Nobody really bothered about them. But this one specifically reverberated in people's minds in a different way because of the individual. And is that fair?
And also, this individual is still alive. Often these people have passed away. So, so it makes it a bit more sensitive and a bit more live. And maybe we have a lot more deference for those who have passed away.
But Wanjiro, do we even know the process that was followed in actually choosing this particular name? Because we actually do have a system. It exists.
Oh, yeah?
Yes, it exists. And in fact, there's something.
Yes, kindly.
There's a Kenya National Addressing System. But there's a committee that decides this thing. It's long name. Kenya National Addressing System Strategy and Development and Implementation Committee. This long name is just to confuse you.
It's a twister.
There is a process by which you actually, it's like you're told.
It's a national committee.
Yeah, you're told.
Is naming of roads a national process?
Oh, it has to be. It has to be. First of all, yes. When you are grading and determining what sort of road it is, there's a committee that nationally has to say.
This is a county road.
No. Before it becomes a county road, there are people who decide now this is a county road. They are. This is
great.
It doesn't just happen.
Great.
There are people who sit and decide, and the very things, the values that you're talking about, are brought into discussion
and are taken into consideration before the awardee is presented.
Actually, that's what we're saying. That's the iffy part.
The values are brought in at that point.
Whether they consider the values or not, we don't know.
So they'll say,
the use, national, the importance, the order of levels.
Go.
There's a discussion that actually takes place now.
Between these people who are appointed by who and are accountable to who and are informed
by what?
We actually have an
and their process is
actually have the broad
and it complies to the constitution. How?
All right, loveliest. The broad spectrum here, the broad structure is in the acts, the road acts. There's an act that deals with roads in this country, right? Now these streets are on a road. The naming road.
Right.
Okay. So all these, there's an umbrella structure under which they fall into. Now, what we are probably discussing is the authority that is then given to individuals who represent a larger grouping to determine the actual names of these streets. Like, for instance, this is Mombasa Road. Okay, we take it for granted.
Because it's heading to Mombasa.
Thika Highway.
Headed to Thika.
No one's arguing with
Nobody's
that
arguing.
one.
But,
precisely.
Okay, Zachary is on the line. Zachary Gikonyo. There's another Gikonyo in the studio today.
I thought it was
Good morning.
Yeah.
How are you?
How is everyone?
Everyone is all right, but let me speak for myself.
Including
Wajiro, how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Wajiro. I told you I have a sister called Wajiro Gikonyo. Now,
yes, she is.
Very quickly, because I know you are going to have some on top of the hour, something like that, yeah?
Something like that.
Very quickly. Let me inform you that I agree with Morimandro that there is a committee that determines what name we give to a certain road or avenue, okay? And there are so many factors that they consider. But then my issue is this. I'm seeing all over social media the what that name down here. Whoever did that could have been aggrieved, and they could have had their reasons, okay, as to why they were feeling that they were violated by having that avenue or road being named after that person, okay?
Yeah.
But then they defeat their reason. Do you know why? The very act of bringing that poster down amounts to vandalism, okay? That is pure vandalism. What they would have done, and in fact that would have given them more coverage, more public coverage, yeah? Is that they would have gone to court to challenge the naming of that avenue or road or estate, that name. And that they would have been given a chance to air their grievances, to say the reason, to maybe probably say the reason as to why they feel that we do not want this area or avenue or road named after this person because of reason A, B, C, D. You see? And right now they are criminals. They have vandalized. That is vandalism. Okay?
So those individuals have defeated the very purpose for which they brought down the thing in the first place.
Definitely, because, okay, they could have been aggrieved, but the way they are trying to confront this issue makes them to be criminals, okay? Yeah. That I think that would be my
Zachary, you're being very harsh.
Thank you, Zachary.
You're being very harsh. Because we say that government cannot approve a budget of 2.8 trillion without public participation. Yet you then go and name an estate road without public participation, and the public objects, and you call them criminals.
They didn't just
whereas I don't advocate for anarchy and vandalism. Do you not see that the problem here is the lack of participation? And should not that be the lesson we are drawing to ask this committee that can come and name a road in my estate? Is this not unconstitutional because county roads are the mandate of the county government? And so,
we have to,
everything had to change in 2010 in terms of functions. And maybe there is a committee that hasn't gotten the memo that now part of their work has to move to the county.
And it has to involve the people.
And it has to involve the people. So who is wrong here? You know, even the ANC was once called a terrorist organization. So, which perspective?
Very quickly, we have told you, that there is a committee. There is a committee that sits down and decides, and they have got their what do we call it? Their way of arriving at, we are going to name this road or this avenue or this building after Wajiro Gikonyo. And if you go to them, they will tell you that we put an advert in the public that we propose to name this place or this building or this avenue after this name, They'll tell you and they'll show you. So I think that's what has been done. What is happening is this, my sister Wajiro, is that this idea of public participation is new to us, and we have not really bought into it, and we have not actually felt the pain of why, what if we do not participate, as we have been told by the Constitution, what shall happen? But as time goes on, okay, with such happenstances, okay, we are going to actually be woke to want to participate in everything that touches on our lives. Okay?
I tell you, thank you very much, Zachary, for your comments this morning, Asante. We're going to go for a break now and see what's happening on traffic. The conversation continues. Are you on City Muga Highway or are you on Wajiro Gikonyo Avenue this morning? Did you do wrong by bringing down that sign, or is the problem really that it's just the name and not the process? It's the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation this morning. Don't go away.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. SpiceFM, Nakuru.
All right, where is it happening this morning? It's still hot and heavy on the southern bypass heading out towards Langata Road this morning. Folks are asking, is it on the Karen Junction? No, it's along the bypass before you even get to the junction. And this heavy traffic having been caused by an accident that took place a little bit earlier, guys. So traffic is backed up all the way on Mombasa Road and it's going a lot further onto the bypass. And so it's slowing things down considerably. And it looks like, they say, when this particular spot has an injury, the rest of it is felt. The Langata interchange also is affected, and through going out in that direction. Okay, let's look again at Outer Ring towards the northern bypass. Not too badly this morning. It was a bit hot and heavy earlier, but has opened up quite some. Coming out of Westlands into the CBD, it looks good. Where everybody is feeling it today is the southern bypass. And if you've not left and you're headed in that direction, please do not change the direction of your journey. Otherwise, you'll be stuck, and you'll be stuck for some time and end up quite frustrated. Other parts of the city don't look too bad in comparison. As you're getting into the city from Thika Road, looking all right. And also from Jogo Road, it's backed up slowly. It's moving all the way from Hamza, then towards the City Stadium roundabout. Going on to Landis Road, then should not be too terrible. Okay, let us know what it looks like in your neck of the woods through the day. SpiceFMKE on Twitter, text on 40127. Try as much as you can to keep things moving this Monday.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
All right, that's what we're looking at this morning. And if you're just joining us, we're having the conversation. All right, public participation on Wajiro Gikonyo Avenue, or look here, it's the individual that people have an issue with. And these processes happen all the time on a national level. Nobody really pays attention to them on City Muga Street. And we're taking your calls this morning. Good morning, Ali in Mombasa.
Good morning.
How are you, Ali?
I'm fine.
Yes, sir.
It is to do with the budget.
It's to do with the budget?
Is it a COVID-19 budget or what is it?
Oh, now we've moved on, my friend, and we're asking ourselves the question. There was a road that was named most recently, and the signage erected in honor of Kotu Secretary General Francis Atwoli. This road was, the road sign was then brought down because citizens are feeling a number of things. And so we're asking the question, should it be that the processes should involve Kenyans, or is it an issue of who the road or a public space is being named after?
Well, it's quite a good question. First and foremost, we have roads.
Yes.
We need to give it a name. We give a name that has a value. Does it value addition to that particular road? And that name, did it give any value to the nation itself or to the building of the people who are using that road? Because you cannot just wake up early in the morning and say, City Muga is going to have a boat in Lamu called City Muga. City Muga doesn't know even where Lamu is. So why are you giving that boat of Lamu City Muga the name when there is nothing he can celebrate it for it? He himself, City Muga. I think you understand.
Yes,
there
Ali.
should be a public participation in it, almost in everything of our life. What I will add another general observation on all these things is the spirit and the letter of the Constitution, which City Buga says is just saying is a blueprint. It's never been followed in any aspect of the life of this nation.
Okay.
The Constitution does not have the spirit and the letter of it.
Mm.
Then in naming the road, you need to know which Constitution are you following it. Is it a bylaw of that area, county, or whatever?
Okay. Asante Sana Ali for your comments this morning. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye. All right. So, I mean, there's a process. There's a process that's followed. And Kenyans need to be involved in the process. The public needs to be involved in the process. But if we're looking at this other side of it, Wajiro, is that, you know what? There are processes, these things happen all the time. But is this particular individual that Kenyans have taken issue with, and that's why they're knocking this thing down? If it was that there is grievance because we were not involved in the process before, it has never come up. In this one, it's the individual. You know, if the bone of contention really is that you're not involving us in the naming of these public spaces or public roads, we would have heard it before.
You know, something else that comes to light is this transfer of functions from the county to the national government. Because what has happened is physical planning is one of the functions that was transferred to the Nairobi Metropolitan. So the person who has done this actually is Buddy. It's not your committee. It's the NMS.
Yes.
And that is why it didn't go through the county assembly, at least. Because normally you hear them talking about these things in the county assembly. So really, it's the point the last caller made about our failure to respect the Constitution. One, the transfer of powers to the Nairobi Metropolitan was done illegally, unconstitutionally. And then now they go on to implement policies that undermine the Constitution. Article 232, public policy making and implementation must have public participation. Sovereign Article 174, self-governance of the people must be respected. So, yes, it's the individual, but it also underlies the wider problem of a lack of respect of local governance and the community's right of say in local governance.
You know what in my mind we're really looking at here is how it is that what we understand to be the law or the tradition that represents the law in our mind, and how it is the operationalization of this new constitution and what it actually, or the import of it, is actually being brought into play. Because when you look at what the president did in bringing into being the Nairobi Metropolitan Service, in the minds of people who have lived a little longer than the bulk of the people in this country, it doesn't startle you or it doesn't really bother you. It bothers you when you realize, wait a moment, what does the Constitution say about such a thing? But the actual act, presidents made edicts, decided, determined. Call it if you wish, delegated responsibility. Others will say dictatorship. You see? Now, I have always enjoyed these processes, even this matter that went before the Constitutional Court, the 5-judge judge bench.
Yes. Our BBI.
Yes. Oh.
Axe cutting.
I was delighted with the outcome because it opens up this whole thing to the sort of discussion that you would never have. Because in discussing it, you get experts explaining to you. But this is what I always find fascinating. One side comes with an explanation which makes a lot of sense. Then another side comes up with another which makes sense. And then
you're wondering.
Then they quote the same constitution. And then just when I thought I was beginning to understand it, they bring an article. I'm thinking, article, okay. Look, so long as you have a constitution that's just 10 years plus old, kidogo plus, I think these things will continuously happen. And any time there's a challenge to any activity that is brought into being by the leadership, it is a good thing. It is a good thing because it opens us to understanding what it means to have this new constitution and how it is that we must and can actually interact with it.
Wow. Siti, there is a difference between what you're saying, which is we have a relatively new constitution. It's not new, but relatively new, that seeks to, that challenges a culture of authoritarianism, a culture of exclusionary development, a culture of impunity. So we have a constitution that's trying to create a very strong paradigm shift. And inevitably that will be difficult. But to then say that the consistent violation of the constitution by the president, by the parliament, by CSs, ignoring court rulings is something we've become used to and is to be expected. I think that's where we go wrong. Because you must remember that the constitution making process was over 10 years in the making. Because you can say, properly speaking, that, the constitution making process started after the 1992 amendment, multi-party amendment, into the IPPG process that, that took us through. And actually, you're talking about...
Actually, the process began even before 1992. 1992 simply opened the door for it now to be an accepted process. But it was taking place even before 1992.
And one of the key things that Kenyans said around the country, if you look at the CKRC submissions, is that the authoritarian powers, excessive powers in the office of the president needed to be contained. The other thing they said is that they didn't want to hear about local governments because of the corruption. So Kenyans were very clear with what they were tired of. They were tired of edicts, presidential edicts, politicized executive authority. They were tired of that. They wanted an accountable president. They wanted a presidential, there was an argument, presidential parliamentary system, but that's neither here nor there. They wanted this executive authoritarian president dealt with, and they wanted corrupt government, local government dealt with. Now that's a fundamental shift. And unfortunately, the current president didn't get that script or didn't buy that script.
Oh, he got it all right.
But doesn't buy it. And unfortunately...
I think he buys it when it suits him.
Minimally. Unfortunately, his advisors, the cabal around him, and possibly the economic interests around them. Because you see, there's a threat to... If you can't make authoritarian directives, how are you going to control the 2-point-something trillion budget? You can't. So really what we are dealing with is we are trying to unseat interests. And these interests cannot go rewarding political cronies in my community at my expense.
You see, Wanjiro, your point is an extremely valid one. But let me just make a little addition to it. You see, why I speak about tradition, half the time that's what you're fighting. When I talk about Kenyans loving corruption, we are fighting tradition. You see, most people don't even think Kitu Kidogo is corruption.
No, because it's normal. It's been so normalized.
Yes, exactly.
Culture.
It's culture, it's tradition. So it may seem innocuous, but it's the real problem because people don't have an aversion to it, not really. And they need to get a point when they have an aversion to it and they feel this thing is wrong. We don't actually think it is very wrong. Giving a policeman 100 bob is not considered wrong. It's just considered an easy way and to stop the bother.
So if you escalate it, then giving even if a process was followed, because that part of the process was not communicated to people. So if you're looking at that and say it's become so normalized, then even in the minds of whomever it is, giving a road a name to whomever really doesn't matter.
After all, everybody knows
what road is. Yes. So if you gave it to him, then it's okay. Just carry along.
But more importantly, look at what Zachary brought out. Okay, vandalism. He is right.
He's right.
It is vandalism. It's a crime.
So why doesn't
But you see,
it's accepted because in this case you would assume that it should be accepted because you're putting across a point.
Then you'll open up the process.
It's not even that, Wanjiro. I'm trying to explain how it is. It's ingrained in our system.
That you can just get rid of something that you
have
don't
a cause,
like.
you even have a righteous cause, but
the means.
Yes.
I'm with you. I agree.
Yes.
And actually, the best thing that could happen is let government prosecute. Okay, maybe you can't prosecute the person you don't know because you don't know who brought it down. But had they known, it would have been great to prosecute. Why? So that those issues can come out. So that the issues of what was the process, what are the values. In fact, government would possibly take it to court, lay the charges, but then they would withdraw because they don't want to open up their undemocratic and system of patronage, where they reward those people who are aligned to the system by giving them a street name for posterity.
Okay, so let's look at when we come back really briefly. Then what possibly could be in the bait here for this reward? Why? In this sense, okay? It's 10 minutes to 10 o'clock. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It's the Situation Room.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your...
Sugar and spice and everything nice, just the way you like it.
The Spice Drive.
Did you have a great day? I hope you did. I intend to make it better from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. I'm going to be taking you home nice and chill. Everyone is welcome aboard. The hashtag is Spice Drive and, of course, SpiceFM KE on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
The Spice Drive with Monique. The official soundtrack of getting you where you need to be. Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM,
It's
Nairobi.
9.5 minutes to 10 o'clock. And so the question is now, what you're saying, Wajiro, is that you're essentially replacing what would have been a process and saying that you want to excuse bad behavior or lack of following of a process, and these awards, because we're just going to call it that, are then being given to individuals who have aligned properly with the political dispensation of the day. Right. Is that the reason why people are annoyed and taking it down?
But do we even know that is what is happening really? Because in all honesty, you cannot say that somebody who's been at the helm of a huge organization like KOTU is a nobody. You cannot say that this is not someone who ought to be recognized for whatever he has done. Look, there is a committee. You may not think so, but it exists. I'm not even discussing that. What I'm saying is, look at the way we respond to situations. Even a group of people who have a just cause, okay? You could say, no, they didn't do it, but somebody did. Yes, but you see, when you have an issue and you express it, sometimes they are what we refer to as unintended consequences. They probably didn't want this thing to be uprooted, but somebody felt, oh, good, lovely opportunity.
Take it down.
Delightful opportunity. Yeah. Even in the days when we had street protests, there was always a criminal element.
Yes.
Always the criminal element.
That would cloud the original intent of that kind of agitation.
Whose purpose was not to be part and parcel of that parade. Then
the objection I'm making is the use of the word criminal element when it's a form of protest.
But in this case, we're looking at vandalism.
Well, it's a form
of vandalism is actually...
There is a form of protest. Sometimes...
you want to sanitize vandalism.
No.
The way you're going,
listen,
that's the direction you're heading.
Let me play it out.
Call it what it is.
Let me play it out. This is a form of protest. It's active, disruptive protest. What the government has then in terms of its response is pursue court action. But to call it criminal will be to miss the point of that action. That action is a protest to the naming of a street without public participation and without being aligned to the values and aspirations of the people.
Wajiro, let's give an example.
It is not
a lot of times where the university in the middle of the city, right, protested against the killing of one of their students or the high-handedness of police, right? Perfectly justifiable protest. Went to walk into the streets, and then there were some people within those crowds who went about tearing down traffic lights, breaking into shops,
I agree with you.
doing things like that. That was wrong. Whichever way we want to call it, it is criminal.
Let me situate this for you. At present, the national government does not allow protests in town. So if I apply, I shouldn't have to under the Constitution. If I apply for permission to hold a protest, I won't be allowed. If I then proceed to protest, then I have violated the law of the government. Yet I can argue it's my constitutional right to protest. Am I a criminal?
No, but have you destroyed somebody's property?
No.
Have you destroyed the county property?
Right. So this is the point I'm making. I agree there was destruction of property, but I don't agree it was criminal. I say it was an act of protest. Fine, take it to court, but it wasn't criminal. Because the criminality, you can say, starts from the violation of the Constitution. It's a form of protest.
Let's look at culture.
That is the point
There
I am
are people
making.
who argue-
Words matter. Names matter.
I
Processes
agree.
matter.
There are people, we're going to dialectics here, there are people who argue that culturally it is perfectly okay for a man to slap his wife around. Okay?
Some invite it.
Yeah, they say...
City has to go there.
No, I have to go there.
He's trying to get under my skin.
No.
Today I've been
Because
very
they say
unflappable. He
it
wants
is
to-
discipline.
It's love. It's love.
It is love. You'll find, oh yes, you'll find some lady or the other who's saying, actually, I was in the wrong. I was just being disciplined.
Or if he doesn't beat me, how will I know truly that he
And then
loves
someone
me?
will say, but wait
Nonsense.
a moment. Wait. You, this is a full-grown person. How do you go around meeting violence?
I can't
I
understand.
can't
find the words in my vocabulary.
I can't
to
even
explain.
find the parallel because we are talking about civic action, civic expression, and the right to protest. This was an act of protest, not an act of criminality.
It is a right to protest, Wajiro, but there is no right to destroy. There's a right to protest, but there's no right to destroy.
And I'm with you, and I agree. No, whether there's a right or not, or whether you can destroy to make a protest, that for me, I'll stand here.
So if
but
you look at
take them to court,
county
prosecute them.
Yeah, county property, you destroy it. They have already called it a criminal act.
Then take it to court. Take it to court. But I won't use the language of criminality because they have violated the Constitution. Who is taking them to court?
Are we really
you see what
sure
I'm
they've
saying?
violated the Constitution? You see, I'm actually bringing the discussion back to that basic.
Yes, they
How
have.
sure are we?
232, public participation. The standard was then set for us because people have been asking for,
How many sections
what's
does
the
232
threshold?
have?
No, by the public participation is not.
I'm not negotiating it.
Read the judgment. It is not negotiable.
Oh, we are back to the judgment, are we?
Of course,
I told you, Milele and forever.
You know why?
But
Because it interprets.
We're not going to get to the, we're never really going to hear the end of this.
CT, just tell me, what is the first article of the Constitution? The first one.
First article of the Constitution.
First.
We.
Yeah. Finish that sentence.
The people of.
Yes. Sovereign power rests with who?
These people.
So public participation comes first. It's not an afterthought.
But Wanjiro,
so let them take it to court. We'll get more good jurisprudence, in fact.
I'm not arguing with that. You see, if you don't accept certain realities, then the nuances really get mired up.
There is language that I won't accept.
My friend, a crime is a crime is a crime.
You've done something wrong, you've done something wrong.
It was an act of protest.
It's not wrong because
it was destruction of property. I agree. Take it to court, but it was not a crime. It was an act of protest. Why? Because your leaders have, have violated you.
Anybody can then give that as a reason or excuse as to what they have done when there's been destruction or somebody then has been attacked. For example, their shop has been broken into. Anybody can then use that as a reason
it's not
and
a
say,
crime.
I was protesting. It was not a crime. I was protesting because there was a student who was shot in the street.
Let's stay on the facts. Let's stay on the facts. Let's stay on the facts.
And we used to protest JM, and then you'd find some criminal elements who want to stone cars. So you're asking, what on earth does protesting JM's death got to do with the stoning of
Number
cars?
one, they did not stone cars. They did not destroy any private property. They brought down. Actually, they don't even destroy. You can argue they brought it down. They did not steal it. They did not go and smelt it. They did not resell it. They did not.
Okay.
So it was an act of protest, not criminality. And the point.
So now maybe in this case, as we are going along very quickly,
property.
CT, maybe you can tell us a little bit about common sense.
One tree doesn't make a forest. One perspective doesn't create a rule of law. The point you make is a valid one because you brought in a nuance. And I'm saying, in this instance, lovely argument, good to hear it, crime.
The last word is also not the forest. It is just the last word.
The conversation comes to a head this morning. Thank you very much for keeping it here with us. All your comments, we see them on social media. For your calls, thanks for being part of the conversation. We do it again tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. It's been Kenya's biggest conversation. It's the Situation Room. Sugar and Spice follows next, and then Sugar and Spice with Yolanda and DJ Absolute. The Spice Drive later on the evening, and Adults in the Room through to the night. 6 o'clock tomorrow, we will be right here with you. For now, it is 10 o'clock.